pissing people on the left off and on the liberal left off. So maybe he'll like throw them a bone with this. What's the matter with him?
Well, it's a big thing in America because so many people are brainwashed. But that's not, it's so much effort. So for him to do that could be, you know, handing over against stuff. Your lives now are looking at selling out as well. So whatever Biden said, I would trust it. I
might just put it down to senility.
Yeah. Exactly, whatever he says, he gets it.
If there's anything inconvenient, then they'll say, oh, he was having a senior moment. He didn't really mean it. Gordon's got a huge fan base on TikTok. How much is it? Like hundreds of thousands. Oh no, it's incredible. Well, Chomsky wrote a whole book about manufacturing consent, and they just show it in real time, don't they? Oh yeah. Oh, cheers, thank you. And you start using his language like something like you never dream.
Hi, I'm Matt Ho here outside the Royal Courts of Justice for Julian Assange's extradition hearing. Tremendous crowd, tremendous support for Julian, his family, and for the right to free speech and a free press. Got Chloe here with us, and she's going to give us some updates on what's going inside the courthouse. Chloe?
Hi, thank you. Okay, a couple of updates. First is that Julian is not inside the court. He was not well enough to attend. And I think, of course, that speaks to the ongoing torture and conditions that Julian is living within.
Right.
And it's important that we don't forget those at any part. Secondly, is that the assurance around the death penalty has been accepted because it is legally binding. So there will be no death penalty for Julian upon arrival in America. They are now getting into the discussion around the First Amendment, which we knew would be the issue. And what's fascinating here is the US government, for the first time, is arguing that there is a distinction between nationality and citizenship, and that is kind of what is happening at this moment. So the US states that non-US citizenship may just be one factor in denying the applicability of First Amendment rights. James Lewis, KC, sorry, let me get my tweets up, so the US states that the so-called assurance is adequate, but because the judges will take solemn notice of it, but the US accepts that the assurance cannot bind the court. They have then, the American government, gone into a conversation now about the difference between nationality and citizenship. It is the first time they have made this distinction. I mean, I'm reading these tweets as they are coming in, so it's all we're very much reading it as it's happening.
I mean, it sounds more like weasel words.
It's a complete fudging of the law and the words. They're bringing up Guantanamo Bay as previous prisoners that the British government sent to Guantanamo, and maybe the British government doesn't need to be so concerned about residency as opposed to a British national. So this is where we are at the moment. The United States government is essentially arguing that the assurance is that Julian will not be discriminated against based on his nationality rather than his citizenship. They argue for the first time that this is an important distinction. So this is what's happening now. We're in the weeds of it essentially. But what it does feel like is it's moving quickly. A lot has been discussed already. Julian's defense has already spoken. We're now listening to the American arguments.
When I hear you say that, Chloe, I'm struck by what the United States is trying to do here. Set a precedent.
Yes.
So by making this distinction between citizenship and nationality, again, as you said, getting into the weeds, getting past this idea, moving past this idea that you know, in our First Amendment in the United States, it references the right to free speech, as free speech is above and beyond anything that government can provide. It is endowed to us, as they say. And so what they're trying to do here is parse that and make it so that there's a technical distinction that they can utilize.
Yes. I mean, we're still dealing with the wording seek to rely. That is what all this is about. And what the Americans have said so far in the court is that is a good enough assurance because they will take it very seriously, as if that is any kind of assurance at all. So again, we're still dealing with this Orwellian, bizarre, strange fudging of language. But things are moving quickly, and I'm hoping to come back to you with another update shortly.
Absolutely. We have to keep in mind that these are all the same people that have been in power for decades. So all those who brought us the global war on terror, for example, are those who are now saying, you can trust us.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So, all right.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Chloe.
Thank you so much. See you later. Bye-bye.
We have a whole bunch of folks here today with us outside this extradition hearing who we want to hear from. I'm going to bring in Crispin, who is here today. Crispin, come in. Can you let the folks know who you are and what you do?
I'm Crispin Flintoff. I present a show on YouTube called Not the Andrew Marr Show. The reason why I do that is because the media in this country is just not presenting the truth, and it's so biased that I had to do it myself. I had to set something up myself, and it's growing all the time. We get more and more people signing up to watch it live on Zoom as well. And I'm here.
Oi, pessoal. Espero que agora estejam me ouvindo. Por favor, alguém me fale aqui se está com o som legal. A gente está transmitindo ao vivo, direto aqui, o canal da Stella Assange, lá de fora da Corte de Justiça de Londres. Me informem aqui a respeito do som, por favor. Como eu disse, essa é uma transmissão que a gente está fazendo ao vivo, retransmitindo o sinal do canal da Stella Assange, esposa de Julian Assange, que está acompanhando o que deve ser a última audiência, a última sessão de justiça para decidir sobre a extradição de Assange para os Estados Unidos. Assange não está no prédio, ele não está em condições de saúde de ter sido transferido da prisão de Belmarsh para a Corte de Justiça. Nós vimos há pouco a Stella Assange e o John Shipton, Stella Assange, esposa de Assange, e o John Shipton entrando no prédio, e há pouco uma representante da equipe legal, da equipe de advogados, da equipe de apoio da campanha de Julian Assange, deu uma breve explicação sobre o que está acontecendo no prédio, né? O que está acontecendo na sessão. Ela diz que a sessão está andando muito rápido, o que já foi confirmado, os Estados Unidos... A questão toda é o seguinte, é se a Justiça aceita as afirmações dos Estados Unidos, as garantias que os Estados Unidos vão dar em relação aos direitos humanos de Assange frente à Justiça norte-americana. A primeira questão é que ele não será condenado à morte. Então, essa era a primeira questionamento da justiça britânica em relação ao governo dos Estados Unidos, né? E o governo dos Estados Unidos, essa foi uma questão que já transitou na sessão de hoje, né? O governo dos Estados Unidos afirmou que não vai pedir a pena de morte para Assange, e essa garantia, aparentemente, pelo que deu para compreender aí, foi aceita pela Corte Britânica. Bom, além disso, está uma discussão acadêmica aí, estranha, em que os representantes dos Estados Unidos estão fazendo uma argumentação sobre a diferença entre nacionalidade e cidadania, e isso teria implicações em relação aos direitos, até aos direitos de liberdade de expressão do governo, dos cidadãos do mundo, né? Então, como você sabe, esse é um processo absolutamente fora dos conformes. A justiça norte-americana processa um cidadão que não é norte-americano por supostos crimes que ele não cometeu nos Estados Unidos, que não foram, se eles existiram, não foram nos Estados Unidos. Enfim, o que significa, como já disse, olha só a passeata, a equipe de Assange, um atentado à liberdade de imprensa e ao direito dos cidadãos serem informados no mundo todo. Eu vou sair fora aqui da área para deixar vir o som de Londres e seguir toda a transmissão. Isso, obviamente, não é agora, mas eles estão passando aí as passeatas. E, bom, só um pouquinho. Enquanto isso, a gente continua aqui na transmissão. Tem aí os vários links para você acompanhar o processo. Vamos let him go, Joe, né? Deixe que ele se vá. Bom, vamos lá para Londres agora.
Happily informed that this is her first time in Australia. Please give a wonderful, warm, Gadigal country, Sydney welcome to Stella Assange.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And Scott's right. This is my first time to your land, and it won't be my last, obviously, because I'm going to come back here home with Julian. And our kids, who are Australian citizens, will come home too.
it's been a bit bittersweet because I always imagined my first visit to Australia to be with Julian and the kids. But I'm just here for a few days. Obviously, the context for this trip was going to be President Biden and the Quad meeting, but they bailed. But I wanted to come here and be able to speak to all of you, because I want to tell you that you guys are at the forefront of a global movement for justice, a global movement that converges on one man, but the meaning of which goes far beyond Julian's freedom. It's not just Julian who has lost his freedom, but all of us. Because in order to keep Julian in prison, they have had to corrupt their own rules and their own principles. But we've reached a point now, I really feel it. We've reached a turning point, because they know that we know that they are wrong and that they are cruel and that they are torturing Julian because he did the right thing, because he's in prison because he exposed the crimes of others. And that no decent, humane human being will ever tolerate that. The only people whose interest remains Julian's imprisonment are the ones who are guilty and implicated in those crimes. Now, I have to tell the children about, try to explain to them what's going on. And I both want to explain to them that this is not a normal situation, but also give them hope. And they have hope because they see the millions of people who support Julian. They see it all the time. But I also have to try to break down what's actually happening here. And I tell them that Julian showed the world that bad people were doing bad things. And those bad people then got so angry that they put him in a prison, and they're holding the keys to his prison cell. But that millions of people are fighting for those keys back. And all of you, each of you, are part of that fight. And there are millions around the world. I've been traveling to Italy, to Germany, in Mexico. John and Gabriel have just been in Mexico, and they were traveling throughout Latin America. Julian's case is a case of global importance, but you guys are at the center of it, because Julian is an Australian. He's a country boy. And he's from this country. And that means that the key to securing Julian's release lies with you. And you guys have been incredible over the years. I mean, I was just in Canberra and I had a meeting in a packed out room of parliamentarians. There was standing room only. And they were from every party. It's really just the entire political spectrum who is now saying enough is enough. I agree with what has been said here, but let's not lose sight of what an achievement this has been, because a few years ago, there was radio silence. And apart from Scott and a few others, people were silent about what was happening, what was being done to Julian. And there has been a sea change. And I'll tell you why. Because of you. Because you know how politicians are. They have opinions about all sorts of things. Sometimes they're the right opinions, but they won't express them unless they think it will further their political career. But you guys have made a very clear signal about what will further their political career. And you need to keep that going. You guys need to shout louder, fight harder, put the pressure on each of your representatives. Make Julian's situation visible everywhere, every day. On your cars, on your shirts, every day you tell all your friends, you talk about it with your family members, you meet with your MPs, and you make sure that Julian stays top priority until he steps out of that prison. Until he comes home to us, to all of us. I think we're near. We can achieve this together. I fight for Julian every day, but I'm not alone. I feel like I am buoyed by all of you and the enormous support that has built over the years of decent people standing for decency, for humanity, and for justice. Not in some abstract way, but in this very concrete way. And don't lose sight of the incredible community that has been formed around this case. All good people I meet, from all walks of life. People I thought I would never meet, not because for anything, but just we wouldn't cross paths. People for which sometimes I would probably have an argument on one or two things, but who have a basic sense of decency and humanity and justice, and who won't tolerate this. Julian knows I'm here today, obviously. I spoke to him this morning. He is really encouraged. It really keeps him going, you know, because every day that passes, if the other side had been successful, he would become more and more invisible, and what's happened is the opposite. Yeah. And that's because of you. I want you guys to know that Julian appreciates each and every one of you, and that he knows that without you, he would never be able to be free. But now we have hope. We have real hope that Julian will be able to step out into the sun once more. I long for the day where we can come to your beautiful city and walk around these spectacular views, the harbor. My breath has been taken away. It's just so spectacular. I saw a rainbow lorikeet up close yesterday, and I saw about 30 kangaroos on the roadside, and it was amazing. Julian has told me so many stories. He grew up in Queensland, and he's lived in Victoria and New South Wales, and he has so many stories. And people just imagine him behind a computer screen, but he's really a country boy, and he wants to show the kids where he grew up. He wants to take us for walks, and I really long for the day when he'll be able to do that. Thank you. Yes, it's important. No extradition, but not just that. Freedom. Let this man be. Let him live. Enough is enough. Let him come home to our children. Let him have just a dinner at home, you know. Let him sit on the couch. Let him take a nap. Let him feel the air on his skin. It's been denied to him for so long. I really let's make it happen, you guys. Thank you.
Hi. So as we mentioned earlier, we've got amazing supporters and activists from around the world.
Bom, então a gente acabou de ver, de acompanhar aí um discurso, um pronunciamento de Stella Assange na Austrália, que ela visitou, a primeira vez que ela visitou a Austrália, a terra natal de Julian Assange. Foi um discurso emocionado, como você acompanhou, em que ela afirma o que vem sendo reafirmado no mundo inteiro, né, que os mesmos que querem a prisão de Assange, que querem, são exatamente aqueles culpados pelos crimes que Assange denunciou. Esses são os que querem a Assange na prisão, que querem calar Assange. Os defensores da liberdade e da democracia são pela liberdade de Julian Assange. Ontem, nas vésperas, então, deste o que parece ser a última sessão de julgamento do pedido de extradição de Assange, o presidente Lula colocou nas suas redes uma manifestação que eu vou colocar aqui na rede para você. Diz o presidente Lula: Julian Assange, o jornalista que deveria ter ganhado o prêmio Pulitzer ao revelar segredos dos poderosos, ao invés disso, está preso há 5 anos na Inglaterra, condenado ao silêncio de toda a imprensa que deveria estar defendendo a sua liberdade como parte da luta pela liberdade de expressão. Espero que a perseguição contra Assange termine e ele volte a ter a liberdade que merece o mais rápido possível. Voltamos, então, com o som de Londres. Você está vendo aí, tem uma equipe da equipe da Stella Assange, a equipe de apoiadores da campanha pela liberdade de Assange, que está fazendo essa cobertura. Há advogados, jornalistas, há um âncora, né, que está acompanhando a cobertura, e os jornalistas estão ouvindo as pessoas que estão lá manifestando seu apoio, sua solidariedade à campanha por Assange. Essa transmissão é ao vivo pelo canal que a gente está retransmitindo, o canal da Stella Assange, e a transmissão está ao vivo desde em frente aí ao prédio da Royal Court of Justice, dos Tribunal Real de Justiça do Reino Unido. Então, vou direto aí passar o som lá pro...
I'm cynical. I have very little faith, very little trust in systems like this. And in this country, as in mine, the courts are not independent. There is no separation between the judiciary and the executive. And to a large extent, decisions that are made because of people in power and their interests. So I hope it will be different.
And I would like to celebrate the fact that there is such popular support. And I think one of the things we need to remember is that those of us on the ground, the public, have a greater strength than we imagine. And I think we need to celebrate that. And that's exactly what this is.
Well, thank you for being here on your last day in London, and thank you for showing solidarity. So you said there was a huge banner, Julian banner in Bangladesh. And what kind of responses would you get? Would people know who he was and what was going on? Or?
Not as much as we would have expected, but certainly the media does know. And that is also one of my concerns, that knowing that there is someone who's speaking out for freedom, particularly for journalists, that journalists themselves have not taken on their role. That has happened in this country as well, sadly. And mainstream media is complicit in some of this.
And where is best to follow you? On Twitter or Instagram? Where can people keep up with?
In Bangladesh, Facebook is far more popular than Twitter is, but I'm there on all of those platforms.
All of the platforms.
We fight everywhere we can.
Exactly. Can you show your
Oh,
lovely...
yes. This is something I actually had made specifically for this occasion and for this movement. And I wear it every time I come to Britain, every time I go to the US, every time I go to Australia.
So you're wearing the House of Alarm today, as they say on red carpets. Well, thank you for being here, and we'll keep in touch. And thank you for, doing solidarity events and discussing this in Bangladesh. And I hope your case doesn't, keep going on and on and on. As we've said earlier, unfortunately, the process is the punishment. But
and free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So yeah, you can follow Shahidul on Facebook. So we're still waiting. You can be following, if you're following on Twitter, follow Free Assange. There's people live tweeting from the court. Curious again, thank you for being with us on the live stream. Would love to hear where you're following the case from. Any messages you want to send, Stella and the team will be looking at all those. So thank you for all the solidarity you're showing. I don't know if you can hear it on the live stream, but there's so much noise in the streets. Basically, buses, cars are often honking when they come through. There's literally people from every walk of life. So it's really powerful being here. Unfortunately, I gather Julian is not in the hearing today. I don't have specific details if that's a health issue, I'm not sure. But I'm certainly following the live Twitter feed on Free Assange closely. So yeah, let us know where you're at, and any questions you want to raise. And just thank you for paying attention, as I said. They want us to be distracted. They want to, they just want to keep Julian wasting away in Belmarsh with all these long hearings. So just thank you for paying attention.
We're going to go now to Stella, who is with the campaign Demilitarize Education. She's out in the crowd. She's one of our co-presenters, and she has been speaking to people all morning long. And she caught up with Ben Westwood, the son of Vivian Westwood. Westwood's, of course, being good friends with Julian Assange and his family. So we're going to go now to Stella's interview with Ben Westwood.
Fashion lovers, design thrivers, all the people that are Westwood fans. We have Ben Westwood, Vivian Westwood's son, here right now outside the Royal Courts of Justice. This is an honor. Westwood is my hero, no doubt, so I'm gassed. Ben, you've been supporting the case for a long, long time. Why is it so important to you?
Well, you know, why is it so important to me? Good question. Because I believe in democracy, and I don't think we have one. I think it's been corrupted always, and I think that Julian gave us the tool that we need, which is transparency, really, because people should know the criminal acts that are being perpetrated in their name by their governments, who have no interest in representing them at all. You know, and people kind of know that, but it's good to have the actual concrete proof, you know, that people are lying out of their back teeth. So, yeah, and also because Julian, I know Julian personally. I met him personally through my mother, I think. I was glad to say. And he's a human being, and I think it's disgusting the way he's been treated by these people who aren't human beings, really. They're... anyway, yeah. A lower vibration. I think they're idiots, actually. I think they're criminal idiots.
Right, I totally feel that, and this sense of energy that is in this place is very much like frustration, annoyance. We shouldn't be here to prevent a man that told the truth from being tortured. How does it make you feel to know that Julian Assange has been in Belmarsh prison for so long?
Well, it's disgusting. I mean, the man hasn't been established if he's done anything wrong at all. You know, and I don't think he has done anything wrong. Anyway, why has he been in Belmarsh so long? As an example, I don't think we're here today to be to get a result on this. I don't think that Julian is going to be released by the establishment at all. I think that he's exactly in the position they want him to be in right now, not being extradited to America, but at the same time being incarcerated indefinitely in solitary in Belmarsh. They don't want him extradited. Is the Julian's father turning up? They don't want him being extradited because that looks very bad for them. But he shows them up to be the hypocrites that they are. You better go and cover.
Yeah,
you better go and cover Julian's father. Hello, Julian's father.
Hello.
I've forgotten your name, but anyway.
Good morning.
Nice
Great
to see you again.
Wow,
Okay.
Julian Assange's dad is right here now. This is a family affair, people. This is us fighting for the freedom of our children, future generations, to be able to tell the truth. Truth is an essential building block to fair and just societies. Ben, do you have anything you want to say to the world about supporting this case?
It's just not been reported on the mainstream media at all. But this is one of the most important cases you could ever be involved in or know about. It shows a complete travesty of justice, complete misrule of law. It just goes to show that laws are not there for justice's sake. They're there to support criminals. It's to give the authority to criminals to carry on with their criminal acts. It's to sort of safeguard the theft and the murder that's been perpetrated by people, by the establishment. When there's this man's condition, it's the same as society's condition. It represents it 100%. When Julian's crushed, so will democracy, so will civil society. You know, and so will rule of law. So will any idea of justice in the world. Just forget it.
That's fascinating. It really is this encapsulation of how Julian's imprisonment is a representation of the imprisonment we face in society. Ben, when you met Julian Assange, what did you talk about? What kind of vibes did you get from him?
Julian Assange, really nice. I mean, we were making food for him and taking it to him in the Ecuadorian embassy. The last time I saw him was just after my son was born, and we took him to took my son to the embassy, and Julian, and he started to cry a bit for some reason or other, and Julian asked if he could hold him, and he was holding him, and bobbing him about, and he was telling us a story about how this shaking a baby about always makes it quieten down because it reflects something in the past whereby when the parents would be moving like this because they're running away from some danger, so the baby would shut up. So this is why the babies always go quiet when you rock them. Anyway, so he's a very nice man, and I was very honoured to have him hold my son. Yeah, I think he's a lovely human being. I think it's disgusting what's being done to him. Really disgusting. Just how the law can disregard any information at all. Just say we're not interested in that. We're interested in this that we say is important. They just make it up as they go along.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you to the whole Westwood family for your continued platform for injustice and helping the world just see and expose all these things which we know are criminal.
Yeah, right.
Ben, there has been suggestions that the CIA was trying to kill Julian Assange. Do you know anything about this?
I don't know. No, but we've heard this. This has been the case. Apparently, Donald Trump's big idea was to have him have some or other have him killed in the embassy in Britain. Ridiculous. And we're supposed to be taking the assurances from this government, from this country, that he won't face the death penalty and he'll receive the First Amendment. You can't believe the thing they're saying. I mean, I've been thinking of the letters of CIA. The CIA is supposed to be the Central Intelligence Agency. It's not. It's the Criminal Institute of America. They're just thugs and crooks, all of them. You know, it's a criminal organisation. I was asked in another interview whether or not what I thought about the fact that all these agents were sort of put in jeopardy by the WikiLeaks release some time ago. And I said that, well, he'd done his best to try. It wasn't him, it was a Guardian who released the password and la, 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 la. But irrespective of that, I've got no respect for these people that have been uncovered. They're all in there trying to do something sneaky, dodgy and illegal. The CIA does nothing apart from criminal acts. You know, if they're involved in anything, you get a dirty stink. Yeah?
Criminal Institute of America, you heard it here first.
3 seconds. Hi, I'm Matt Ho. We're outside the Royal Courts of Justice. You just saw an interview done by Stela of one of the supporters of Julian, but also a friend of his family. And I want to bring in Stela, who did that interview. Stela, come on in. You're out here with us as one of our co-presenters. First of all, you're with an organization called Demilitarized Education.
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit about that and then how that ties into why we're all here today?
Absolutely, yes. So my organisation works to break the ties between UK universities and the arms trade. The education system is completely riddled with the military. Arms companies are using educational capacity to advance the war machine. Our campaign, shout out to all the Education Massive, we are looking to see universities sign a demilitarized education treaty, change their policy so they no longer partner with arms companies, and instead champion peace. Okay? All of us want peace. I've been out talking to everybody. Everyone's here to try and get a better world. And that is impossible without the building block of truth.
Right. Right, absolutely, absolutely, and you know, certainly where I'm from in the states, the militarization of education is it's pervasive. We have what's called ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps units, not just in our colleges, but in our high schools and in our middle schools, and they actually teach classes. So do you see that as well, like this push on education, this push to like give their version of the truth as opposed to obviously what they're trying to suppress?
Absolutely. It is the politicization of our education. Most British people don't know that over £90 million has been spent since 2012 promoting military ethos in schools.
Wow.
That's primary and secondary schools.
Right.
This is our children, teaching them how to aggressively defend their own interests and be prepared to use force to do so. And people are wondering why there's so much violence.
Right.
You know, for me, education is the architecture of our society. And while we're lining it with all these war political agendas, there's no way that we're going to be able to inspire a civilization beyond it, beyond the needless suffering that we see today. And yeah, in the US, it's an absolute state because, of course, you have some of the biggest universities with huge endowment funds. And there's an issue with marketized education in general, right? In the same way that right now, market forces are controlling our political agendas,
Right.
they're also controlling our academic agendas.
Right.
This is dangerous because suddenly education has lost its capacity to be an explorative space for the advancement of humankind.
Right.
And instead it becomes a place for the advancement of profit.
Right, and so in terms of like with the money in all this, how do you argue for more education versus more war if people know about the realities of war, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say too, we have in the United States with our militaries recruiting problems. All the services, with the exception of the Marine Corps, but the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, they're all having problems. They're running tens and tens of thousands of recruits short every year. And some of it is because people understand the reality of war. They don't want to go and join a military. It's going to go and do these war crimes. So this, you know, how does this play into what you all do? And again, how it relates to here, outside the extradition hearing.
You know what, Matt? Like, the facade has gone. Trust is at an all-time low. You can't just buy these people into your wars anymore.
Right.
You can't delude them that like they are doing this for some moral purpose to protect their country when we have been watching, thanks to Julian Assange, thanks to many other independent journalists, the realities of British and US foreign policy and beyond. So right now we're looking at this hearing and I'm just kind of, you have to laugh because everyone at home watching, we know this is corrupt. We know that there's been payouts and bribes, and we know that they are so scared of Julian Assange and the realities of all these other people that aren't joining the army now because of the truth, because that truth exposes how weak the military-industrial complex and their political agendas actually are. When the people speak out, when the people know their power, when the people use education to actually advance us into a peaceful world, we'll achieve it. All is possible.
Right, and so you've been here today, you've been out in this crowd, this terrific crowd of supporters, people here in solidarity, right, with Julian and his family, and with this desire to protect free speech and free press. And so what have you run into in the crowd? I should say. Let's ask you. Yeah.
Oh,
I should shut up and just let you answer that. Yeah.
There's a brilliant eclectic mix of people. We got some crazy people that have just got so much to say, and they've, done their own research into the delusions of our current political agendas. Then we have some grandmas, there's some carol singers on the recorder. It was beautiful. We've got an amazing dog that's just like an absolute lion over here.
Right here. Yeah, Maya. Yeah.
Maya.
I don't know if she's in the shot or not, but she's got her Free Assange badge on and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
We got the cutest dog in London to come through, so that's a win. There's people. I've been speaking to 3 people from Italy. They flew in at 2 a.m. this morning.
Wow.
And they've got a flight home after this.
That's fantastic.
Right?
That's fantastic.
We've got people from New Zealand. We've got people from Switzerland. They're all investing their own money into not just Julian Assange's freedom, but what that means in the context of freeing us from the miserable state of our system.
Thank you. That's so important for us all to be together like this. I mean, it's important for Julian and his family, of course, but also too to stand up for them and stand up against what our governments are doing, including this terrible prosecution and persecution. But I know you're going to get back out there. You're going to talk to some more folks. We'll talk to you later, right? Oh, absolutely, please.
Because what I've learned due to my work at Demilitarized Education, Deducation, check us out. We host the world's first university arms database, and we've uncovered £2 billion worth so far.
Wow.
What I've really learned is how the state uses our education system to create a hope vacuum. What I hear a lot in my work is, oh, but that's the way the world is, or, oh, I can't change anything. And I can tell them that is paid for. That is what the state want you to say. And that is a complete delusion of how powerful you really are. Us all here coming together, it's monumental, and it needs to ripple into our societies on a day-to-day basis. We are not independent. We are not alone in our struggles. Everyone is feeling it. Everyone wants change. So go talk to your broski at the local shop. Go talk to the grandma that you've never spoken to. Actually come together and listen, and you'll understand that together we can shift things.
Beautifully said. Thank you for that, Stella, and look forward to talking to you again.
Sure.
At some point this afternoon. But you're gonna get back out there and talk to all these folks, and those words what you just said, I think that summarizes why we're all here. So thank you.
Thank you.
That was Stella. She's one of our co-presenters. We're gonna go shortly to one of our other co-presenters, James Kennedy. But I just wanted to follow up real quick on what you were saying about the hope. I said it earlier. We breathe, we hope. But the reality is we have to make real that hope. And it's through this action, it's through what all these people are doing here today that is making that hope, whether it's for justice to be served for Julian and his family or for the preservations of our freedoms. We make real our hope. But right now we're going to go to James Kennedy, who's talking throughout the day with people in the crowd. This is something he recorded earlier.
The same way down. I completely forgot I was at home. I had something on YouTube that clicked over and the live feed came on.
Bom, pessoal, aí são imagens gravadas anteriormente, né, do povo que está reunido em frente aí a área, né, ou na área, em frente ao prédio da Royal Court of Justice, onde está sendo agora julgado o pedido de extradição de Julian Assange. Eu queria lembrar a todos que conhecem, mas que gostariam de conhecer mais profundamente o caso de Assange, que aqui no TUTAMÉIA você encontra várias entrevistas sobre o caso. Eu recomendo especialmente duas dessas entrevistas, que são a entrevista que fizemos com o pai de Assange, John Shipton, contando sobre todo o trabalho da família, de luta, o sofrimento, a luta pela libertação dele, e também uma entrevista com a advogada Sara Vivacqua, que acompanha detidamente o caso de Julian Assange e nos apresentou as várias implicações desse processo, que do início ao fim é um processo criminoso de manipulação da justiça. Como disse a Stella Assange, vem repetindo várias vezes, e como muitos outros dizem, esse é um processo em que os únicos culpados são aqueles culpados pelos crimes, são os responsáveis pelos crimes que Assange denunciou. Lembrando que a perseguição feita pelos Estados Unidos contra Assange é porque o Wikileaks, o site Wikileaks, denunciou crimes cometidos pelas forças norte-americanas no Iraque. Enfim, gente, a gente volta, como eu disse antes, nós estamos fazendo aqui uma transmissão direto com o sinal transmitido pelo canal da Stella Assange, a esposa do Assange, e que também está sendo transmitido em outros canais no Brasil. Também há o canal Free Assange, que também faz parte desse pool aí que transmite esse mesmo sinal que você está acompanhando. Então, há âncoras e repórteres em frente aí à Corte de Justiça de Londres, Corte de Justiça do Reino Unido. Eles acompanham, né, fazem entrevistas com o pessoal que está no público, como essa que está sendo transmitindo agora ao vivo, e de vez em quando também trazem representantes da equipe de advogados de Assange, que daí atualiza a gente a esse respeito. A última atualização foi quase no início, ou pelo menos quase no início dessa transmissão aqui pelo TUTAMÉIA. Uma advogada, uma representante legal do Assange, trouxe as informações que o Assange não está presente na sessão por problemas de saúde, não estava claro exatamente qual é a situação de saúde do jornalista, mas ele não pôde vir para essa audiência. Disse também que a Justiça britânica já havia aceito a afirmação, a garantia de que o governo norte-americano não pediria a pena de morte para Assange. Essa era uma das condições estabelecidas pela Justiça britânica para encaminhar o pedido de extradição. Ela também falou de uma discussão tautológica que estava acontecendo lá sobre a diferença entre cidadania e nacionalidade, e isso teria implicações no direito da pessoa a proteções legais. Então, essas informações que eu estou passando agora foram as mais recentes, transmitidas, mais recentes há cerca de 50 minutos, transmitidas pela equipe do Assange. A gente volta com o som de Londres e vamos seguir acompanhando aqui essa transmissão que é originalmente feita pelo canal da Stella.
Backup or a sticker in your car, wherever it is, but just make sure that this doesn't get brushed under the carpet and forgotten about, because it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. James, I know you want to get back out there, talk to more people, and we'll catch up with you later.
Thank you so much, man.
All right, thank you, James.
You too.
Yep. That was James Kennedy. He's a musician. He's out here working with us today, supporting Julian Assange and his family. He's been in the crowd talking to these hundreds of supporters. The environment here is absolutely terrific, but also too online. My understanding, I've been told, just one of the feeds on Twitter has had 55, 60,000 viewers consistently since we went online 4 hours ago. And so if you're watching this, please share it. Of course, like and subscribe, comment as well, get involved in the conversation, but also or I should say most importantly, share it. Make sure other people know this is going on, particularly those who may not know what this is about, both in terms of the direct persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange, the cruelty being done to his family, but as well what this is, this threat, this very real danger, this assault on all of our rights. And now we're going to go to a video with Tim Dawson from the International Federation of Journalists, because that's such a key part of this, is the fact that Julian is a journalist. I mean, there can't be greater misinformation regarding this as to whether or not Julian is a journalist. He is. That's the first line of attack you hear from all over the place. But back home in the States, that's what they say. All this media establishment that doesn't want to support Julian, that's their excuse. Well, he's not a journalist. Well, he is a journalist. And Tim Dawson from the International Federation of Journalism has something to say in his support.
So tell me, Tim, a little bit about IFJ and why it is has become involved in this battle for Julian Assange's freedom.
The International Federation of Journalists is a membership organisation comprised of journalists, trades unions and associations from all over the world. So we have something like 180 organisations in membership representing 600,000 journalists around the world. And we try to express the will and to represent the interests of all those unions from all around the world. It's been very obvious for some time, looking at motions passed at our congresses, that journalists' unions are deeply worried about the attempted prosecution of Julian Assange. I think certainly from the time that the charges were published, it was clear that these were activities that were the normal work of journalists that the US Department of Justice were pursuing Julian Assange for. And as such, we immediately saw the issue for journalists anywhere. Anybody who was in possession of state documents, of state secrets from the United States would potentially be at risk if Julian Assange's prosecution was successful. So from that time onwards, we have tried to represent the voice of journalists around the world in saying this prosecution, I mean, the extradition should be stopped, the prosecution should be stopped, Julian Assange should be allowed to go about his lawful business and return to the work that he was doing before all of this sort of grotesque circus took off.
How does this strike you, this endless discussion of whether Julian is a journalist or not, sort of in light of the fact that, yes, he is a member of the International Federation of Journalism through his Australian union, where he has been a member for almost 20 years?
To be honest, I think it's a bit of a distraction, and it's an argument that there's not really very much merit in entering into. There's no question in my mind that the work that he was doing was the work of a journalist, was journalistic work. He'd identified potentially very serious wrongdoing. He found a confidential source who had access to documents telling us more about that, and we're told, helped that source to leak those documents in a very effective way. That is all work that any journalist would carry out to try and obtain such an important story. I understand why some journalists who have trained at university, who've undertaken an apprenticeship, who work within a structure, within a news platform, look at the slightly freewheeling style of Julian Assange and say, well, he's not the same as me, he's not a journalist. And as I say, I think that's a bit of a distraction. I think it's better to focus on what is quite clear, that it was journalistic work, and not get bogged down in what is essentially an arcane argument.
Isn't it the fact that what WikiLeaks presented in especially in 2010, 2011, with the explosive leaks at that point, that there was a shift in the journalistic environment, so to speak, basically reflecting the new reality which journalism finds itself into, both financially and technologically. So isn't this a as you say, an archaic argument that we need to rethink the entire environment of journalism and the rights and duties of journalists within its environment.
I think that's an important and interesting debate. I mean, one of the things about the news media is that it is, and always has been, a place of very quick and profound change as technology impacts on the way in which we tell stories and the way in which stories become available. And there's no question that the kind of works that WikiLeaks was doing was at the very forefront of that kind of change, both in terms of the scale of the leaks. I mean, there were also profound changes in the way that the US military were recording so much information, far more, I understand, than they had in previous conflicts. So, you know, that was a very significant change. Changing also was the means of distributing news. I mean, clearly there was a period, probably when you and I started our careers, Kristen, when the only available news sources were major news platforms, newspapers and television stations. Clearly, that isn't the case now. It's possible it's possible for anybody to publish anything on the web. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that my blog has the same impact as the Times or the Guardian or a national broadcaster, but nonetheless, the nature of journalism and the approach that one needs to take to become a journalist or to do journalistic work has changed profoundly. And, you know, that's something that we do need to talk about. We need to understand how that impacts people's livelihoods and also how that impacts the information that's available to society.
Tell me about the possible impact of the decision that we will hear about on May 20th from the Royal Court of Justice on journalists and journalism.
Well, I suppose there are a number of things that could happen on the 20th. One is that all leave to appeal could be denied, in which case I am guessing in fairly short order, Julian Assange will be taken to the United States. Obviously, there is a slight possibility that his case might be considered by the European Court of Human Rights, but I'm told, and this is not the basis of my own legal understanding, that the chances of that are relatively small. I think if a prosecution starts in the United States, it will be a terrible thing for journalism. It will be a terrible thing for the United States as well. It will show off the worst of the United States. It will show off a country that has a constitution which appears to guarantee certain things like freedom of speech, which, so far as we can tell, may well be denied one of the world's most prominent exponents of free speech, which I think would be deeply damaging to the United States. But for journalism, the prospect of somebody being prosecuted for finding a source, helping that source to provide information of terrible wrongdoing, and then playing a part in publishing that will be damaging indeed. I think journalists all over the world will feel a shoulder falling on them. And will feel a shadow falling on their shoulder. And although there are very many brave and determined journalists, I think there are people who will be handed classified information and will reasonably think, if Julian Assange is risking the prospect of the rest of his life in prison, possibly in solitary confinement, possibly scarcely seeing his family and friends again, that's one hell of a risk to take for a story.
You are working closely with journalists from all over the world. Would you agree with me that the case of Julian Assange has even already had a cooling effect and created a precedent that has reflected negatively on journalists and journalism?
I think it's hard to measure whether there has already been a cooling effect, but it's hard to ignore the possibility that has been the case. This has been an enormously high-profile case. It's been reported all over the world. It's been, in court now for more than 2 years. There can't be anybody handling classified information who doesn't know about it, and there can't be anybody who hasn't thought, at least fleetingly, what impact could this case have on me? And the question that I ask is, what don't we know as a result of the cooling effect? What don't we know because people have acted more cautiously than they might have done? we know so much as a result of extraordinary investigative journalism, from cases like thalidomide in this country to the Paradise Papers, the Panama Papers, you know, revelations about how our societies are organized, sometimes for the benefit of a tiny number of people. They're all the result of really important investigative journalism. And I'm sure there's more out there, but some of it may not be coming to light precisely because people feel worried about using classified information as a result of this trial, as a result of this extradition process.
The Free Assange campaign has stated that this is the most important press freedom case of our time. Would you agree?
Well, it's quite a hard thing to sort of have a league table and to say, well, this is more important than that. Being completely honest with you, you know, the scale of journalists' death in Gaza is a terrible, heartbreaking, and deeply, deeply disturbing case. So I'm not really in the business of saying, you know, one case is more important than another. I can say beyond any shadow of a doubt that the case of Julian Assange is of immense importance. It's of immense importance in terms of the reach of the United States. It's an immense importance in terms of the kind of crazy-headed determination of the American administration to try and chase somebody down. It's of enormous importance because of the almost medieval provisions of the United States judiciary that somebody could face the rest of their life in prisons, which, from the way I've heard them described by insiders, sound absolutely terrible. It's of enormous importance because of the scale and the importance of the revelations on which it's all based. So, you know, this is of seismic importance in my view.
Just to be clear, I totally agree with you that the horrendous sacrifices that the journalists have made in Gaza is simply unacceptable, and that everyone should focus on that as well today to stop the killing of journalists in Gaza. We're all focusing on the court decision in central London, but isn't the case really that to avert this danger inherently in this case, the Biden administration and the Department of Justice should simply drop the case?
The best thing that could happen now is for Joe Biden to come to his senses and simply say, this was a crazy case pursued by some of the ultras in the crazy Trump administration, and we should just drop it. We know that when he was Obama's vice president, he would have been involved in the decision when they considered whether to try and prosecute Julian Assange, and decided very wisely that it was a foolish idea indeed.
Trying to hear what they're saying. If you have not heard that, if you've not heard that, Julian Assange has run the right to a full appeal. We are hearing that right now. You're hearing it as soon as we are hearing. It is coming from the speaker's podium that Julian Assange has won the right to a full appeal. This has got to do with his right to free speech, the right of a free press, and Julian's right to contest that in an English court. You can hear the crowd behind me applauding this victory for Julian Assange, his family, and for all of us. This is why we have been saying, free Assange, free us all. Julian Assange has won the right to appeal. He will be going in front of an English court to challenge this cruel and vindictive attempt by the American government to extradite him for doing nothing more than speaking the truth and for exposing the crimes of an empire. So we have heard, if you're just joining us right now, that Julian Assange has won the right to a full appeal. We do not have details, of course, on when that will occur, how that will occur. But for right now, the hope that we've been talking of all morning, the hope that one speaker after next, the hundreds of people who gathered here, that hope has proven true. That hope has proven correct. The solidarity with Julian Assange, the solidarity with free speech, with a free press has been proven correct. This win, as far as we can see it, this win today, this right to an appeal is a victory for Julian Assange, it is a victory for his family, it is a victory for everyone who has stood all these years in solidarity with Julian, in solidarity with WikiLeaks, and with the belief that people should know what their governments are doing, especially when that government is committing crimes, especially when that government is committing war crimes. Behind me, the crowd is cheering. It's getting a little bit loud, a little hard for me to hear, but that's a good thing, right? That is the noise of freedom that we have spoken of. So Julian Assange has been granted a full appeal. Hopefully we'll have some folks here shortly who can speak more to those details. But for right now, this is the enthusiasm, the cheer, the confidence that this crowd had in Julian, this confidence this crowd had in the rights of man, the rights of free speech, the rights of a free press, the right to read, to say, to listen to what we want, has not been extinguished. And so at this moment in time, I think this is, of course, a historic moment. We will, of course, see what comes of this, what an appeal looks like, when an appeal will occur. I think a lot of us, of course, are thinking, will this appeal occur before the United States presidential elections? Will they stretch this out and delay this to further deny justice, to further impinge upon and harm Julian and his family? But for right now, in this moment, we understand that Julian Assange has been given the right to a full appeal. Behind me, you can see the crowds. We're still waiting for the court to adjourn, waiting for people to come out. When they come out, they will be on the speaker's podium behind me. We will, of course, be relaying that to you all through this live stream. I want to thank everybody for being on this live stream. We're not going anywhere, but I just want to take this moment to thank you all for being on this live stream. The team here, which has been a fantastic team in support of Julian and Stella and this effort, is incredibly grateful for all of you who have been supporting, whether here in London or from afar. But just to repeat again, our understanding is that Julian Assange has won the right to a full appeal based upon the assurances that the United States gave that his protections for free speech may not be honored. I understand that may be related to the issue of him being prejudiced for his nationality, something we spoke with Chloe a bit earlier. And I want to bring someone on right now who can speak further to this. So grateful for you to join us here. A quick introduction, and can you let us know what you know at this point?
Yeah, I'm John Rees. I'm chairing today's rally for the Free Assange campaign. I was in court this morning and I'll be reporting it for the Middle East Eye. It is the single best day in this case since it began. I mean, it's a momentous day because essentially what has happened is that the United States government gave assurances to the court, a diplomatic note between governments, and this court said, we don't believe it. We just don't believe that he will have First Amendment rights, and we don't believe that he'll be treated like an American citizen would be, and we're sending it to a higher court, to another appeal in an English court to decide these matters.
That's so important for us to hear, John. The fact that someone like yourself, who's been involved in this for so long, who's so instrumental to it, that you're expressing this degree of enthusiasm, right? That you're saying these words. This is the best day to happen.
It's the best day since we began. I mean, the only other comparable day was when the magistrates' court said that he shouldn't be extradited. We've gone through a whole number of appeals, one of which overturned that decision. This has basically reset the clock and given us another chance in the English courts, and that's very, very important indeed. And also it gives time for the political process to unwind some more, because it's absolutely clear that the American government are getting cold feet about this. This decision will give them even more pause for thought. We've always said that this is fundamentally a political case, and why this decision is important is because it gives more time for the politics to play out.
I think a lot of people are probably wondering about a timeline. Any idea what that would look like?
No, that will have to be decided between the judges and the lawyers. It will depend on the lawyers' availability, when they can get their cases together. But if anything that's happened previously in this case is anything to go by, it won't necessarily be a quick process.
Right. And the first assurance on the death penalty, the court accepted that, correct?
Everybody has accepted that that's now off the table.
Okay. And then now goes to this issue of free speech.
Yeah.
And in particular, I think for those maybe who are not so familiar with this, what is the argument in that? Where is the court saying that Julian has a right to free speech? Because obviously Americans are saying it's not coming from our Constitution.
The argument now is, will he be able to rely and securely rely on First Amendment protections, as any American citizen in an American court might claim? The court was told that this would be the case, except that he's a foreigner, except that this happened on foreign soil, except that it's a national security issue. And obviously, what the judges decided are that these are assurances that have got so many holes in them, they're no longer assurances.
Right. And how are you feeling? I've got a feeling what you're going to say because you just described it as the best day. But for you personally, someone who's been involved in this for so long, what are you feeling right now?
Of course, it is so much better than the immediate threat of Julian being bundled onto a plane. Of course, it is so much better than that. But there's still a long fight, and the crucial thing for me is less that there's another hearing, but that there's more time. Because there's more time, the political pressure can be built in what is fundamentally a political case.
So saying that, what do you want people to do?
Protest. We've got this far because we wouldn't stop protesting. We've got this far because people wouldn't give up, wouldn't not come out on the streets, and we've got to do more of that. So as in any campaign, no matter how little you can do it. If you can just write to your MP or your representative, do it. If you can just post online, do it. If you can be on a demonstration, do it. If you can organise a demonstration, do it. But whatever you can do, if you do a bit more than you did yesterday, then we're building a really important campaign.
Because this is the result of people like you, people like the folks here, people like all those folks and all the folks watching and all the countless thousands and thousands, millions of others, right?
Yes, it's pressure. It's political pressure. And in the end of the day, the only thing that ordinary people have got is they don't have power, they don't have money, but they do have numbers and they do have organisation. And if they get the numbers and the organisation together, they can beat the people with the power and the money.
I know you probably need to get back. Anything you want to say before you get back to it? Hopefully we can talk to you later again.
Good day. Keep fighting.
Right on. Thank you, John. That was John Reese. John is the organizer for this rally here, very much involved in the campaign to free Julian Assange. And when he says this is the best day in the campaign, what that means, the gravity of that, the enormity of that, something that's been going on for more than a decade. I've for more than 12 years at least, we've been dealing with this, watching this man and his family be persecuted and prosecuted for telling the truth. So when John says that about this being the best day, wow, holy cow, that is something that we really have to sink in. And the crowd behind us is just absolutely, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go right now to the crowd because we shouldn't be watching me talk about, we should go and watch them. So we're going to throw it to the crowd right now.
The judges are not going to save it. The old girl are not going to save it. It is up to us. Every day, every Saturday, we have a group that speaks the bell march. Also, in the evening, Piccadilly Circus between 4 and 6. Please, people, if you have the time, come out. We have to make Julian's name louder. The smears against Julian. The smears against Julian have been successful.
All Julian's First Amendment rights were pushed for the first time. All kinds of political process to make itself out. We always said from the beginning, this is an entirely political place. And what is it? This was all time. To build political pressure, all time, to campaign, as we welcome guests from now, Jim Schneider, guests from National, who's been campaigning alongside us all the way through this. And we're very proud of Julian Assange's case.
There's one over there.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
I should be here.
Today is a defeat for the crimes that they want to cover up that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks have revealed. Today provides an opportunity for the growing mutiny against the rule of US empire in the US, in the UK, and right around the world to continue to both grow and to unite, to link arms together. That's what we are seeing in the university encampments in the US, just down the road at the LSE, at SOAS, and around the country. That's what we see in the millions of people protesting against the crimes of empire around the world, because all of these causes are all connected and are all linked. Julian Assange's case is not only about him. He should be freed as a human being and to live as a human being with his family. But they aren't attacking him because he is a human being. They are attacking him because of what he has told us. And that weapon, that knowledge, they can't put that milk back in the bottle. Everybody standing here today knows about the world system and how it operates, and that's why you all stand, that's why we all stand with Julian Assange for freedom of the press, yes, but even more importantly, for freedom and sovereignty for all people around the world who have suffered for far too long the oppression which Julian is facing so painfully in there, but millions, if not billions, of people around the world face. So, now we have a little more time. There will be more court dates and more appeal. So I say to you, please come back, be louder, be stronger, because this is, as John said, this is a political trial. Yes, there are fine arguments of law that are made in that court, but ultimately it comes down to power and to pressure. So every small act that you are doing here, that you will do tomorrow, that you will do the day after, and so on, to free Julian and to stand up for a better world based on freedom, dignity, and justice for all, that is important. And so I say, free Assange, and thank you very much.
Now, everyone here today has the right to be enormously proud of their presence on this day, because this is an important day. The most powerful state in the world sent a message to the British courts. It assured the British courts, in a diplomatic note between governments, it assured the British courts
that Julian Assange could rely on First Amendment defences. And the British court said, we don't believe you. Now I'm very proud to welcome another guest to speak to you today. My union, the National Union of Journalists, is a member of the International Federation of Journalists, and Dominique Bradlier is the president of the International Federation of Journalists, who've given their wholehearted support to Julian Assange. I'd like to welcome her to the platform.
Today is a victory, but part of a victory only. It's a big victory for all people, for freedom of the press, for whistleblowers, from journalists of all around the world. As International Federation President, on behalf of the about 600,000 journalists around the world, we want to say we are happy today to see that Julian Assange can plead. He can plead, he can be a journalist and explaining what happened and saying to the whole world, I was doing just my job as a journalist. Now it's part victory because he is still in jail, and it's a real shock for everybody that he has to remain in jail as he only did his job. Today we are, as for years and years, supporting him, supporting press freedom. You know what? Press freedom is not for journalists, it's for everybody to know the truth.
No, out the way.
Wait for that. Okay. Let's go.
Let's go.
Yes.
Should I go? The judges reached the right decision. We spent a long time hearing the United States putting lipstick on a pig, but the judges did not buy it. As a family, we're relieved.
Fuck off me!
As a family, we're relieved. But how long can this go on? The United States should read the situation and drop this case now. Now is the moment to do it. Just abandon this shameful attack on journalists, on the press, and the public that has been going on for 14 years.
Free democracy! Free Assange! We love you, Stella!
This case is shameful, and it is taking an enormous toll on Julian. He is under enormous pressure. He has been in Belmarsh prison for over 5 years. It's been 2 years since the order was issued. This case should just be abandoned. The Biden administration should have dropped it from day one. But now is a right moment for the Biden administration to drop it. So please, those in the United States who are in a power to make a decision, please just drop this case now. Don't let this go on any longer. Thank you.
Craig. Hi, Kathy. Can you do a show tomorrow with us? Yeah, can do. I can. Yeah. Hello, John.
Right, I'll have your name.
What's your name? What is your name? Jason who? Don't worry.
Okay, thank you once again for being here. There have been some hard days outside the courts during the course of this campaign, but this is a better day than we've had at any time since the magistrate first stopped the extradition. So, just to report to you about what's been happening inside the court, about what the significance of it is, about what we'd like people to be doing going forward. I'm going to call a number of speakers who've been in there. First of all, somebody who's been right at the heart of this, has been a relentless campaigner for Julian Assange, the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, Kristen Harfordson.
Thank you so much for coming here today. It's because of people like you that we're finally seeing a glimpse of justice. The sun doesn't shine all that much in London, but today, a glimpse, a sun ray of justice. Finally we saw it. And it will mark a path to victory. We said, of course, it shouldn't have taken more than 5 minutes in this courtroom for the judges to see that the United States government was not going to give Julian any assurances, and they would discriminate against him. They would not give him First Amendment protection. It took a couple of hours, but the judges did came to the just and the right conclusion. Julian Assange has now the right to appeal. And that in itself should send the right message across the sea to the Biden administration. Look there, you're on a losing ground. You're losing this case. If you want to save any form of face, drop the case against Julian Assange. Drop it right now. It is the only decision that can save face in the US. And of course it will save the future of journalism, which is put at risk in this case. So join me in the call across the sea. Let it be heard. You are losing. Drop the case.
Yes, it's quite something. It's quite something when one of the highest courts in this country says to the American government, we just don't believe you. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Rebecca Vincent from Reporters Without Borders. She's been campaigning all the way through this. Her organisation have thrown their weight into campaigning for Julian Assange. She's been in court on every previous hearing and today. Please give Rebecca Vincent a very warm welcome.
So this is very good news, and let's take it because we've been waiting a long time for any good news in this case. This is a victory. This means that the issues at the very heart of this case, freedom of expression, press freedom, will get consideration by these courts. It's been far too long to get to this point, but it is so important. Of course, this remains a political case. We have this hope that the UK courts will prevent extradition, and that, after today, is still very much possible. But we hope across the ocean that there are some very uncomfortable people in Washington, D.C. looking at London today and thinking very hard about where to go next, because this does not have to play its way through the courts. We do not have to continue to do this month after month. President Biden could make his legacy to be the president who stops this now, who doesn't let it go any further. Julian Assange should not be in prison in the UK, in the US, anywhere for a single day more. We should mention that he wasn't well enough to come to court today. That is very worrying. So let's not lose sight of what's happening to him himself. So I hope that this crowd here today, that the attention that the world will pay to this really important decision this morning, that they'll also not lose sight of where Julian Assange is, which is in a high security UK prison where he's been for more than 5 years for publishing information in the public interest. That is unacceptable. So we hope to see you back outside this court. As soon as this hearing is called, we will be here. We will continue to follow this case closely. It is one of our top priorities because of the dangerous implications it has for journalism and press freedom around the world. We will keep up the campaign to free Assange.
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange! And somebody who's been working tirelessly to free Julian Assange. I've said this before, he's been a former ambassador for this country. But that work pales into insignificance in my view compared to the work he's done for the ordinary people of this country and to sustain press freedom in his reporting and his work for the Assange campaign. Please welcome Craig Murray.
Everyone, a few hours ago I told you today was going to be a good day, and today has been an excellent day. We haven't got Julian out just yet, but we are on the way to getting Julian out. We are on the way to victory in this battle. The court granted leave to appeal on 2 grounds today. Leave to appeal on grounds of discrimination by nationality and leave to appeal on the grounds of freedom of expression. And we are seeing at last an acknowledgement of the crucial importance of freedom of speech, freedom of information, and of the public's right to know. And those are the grounds on which we will win this case. It's been a hell of a struggle. It's been a long, long struggle. I see people standing here who I met 12, 14 years ago, standing in the pouring rain outside the Ecuadorian embassy. We've grown a bit older together. I don't know about you, but I've got better looking. And we are still going, and we are going on. And we were fighting what seemed like a losing battle. We were fighting against the odds, but we have turned down public opinion. We have turned down legal opinion. We are turning the world for the better, and we are going forward to free Julian Assange. Thank you.
Craig's right. This has been a long, hard fight, and it's not over yet. But I know someone who's been in the first rank of that from the beginning, has been there at every major battle, has thrown himself right into the forefront of this fight on 3 continents. Please welcome Julian Assange's father, John Shipton.
You guys picked a winner. Look, the entire thing, I reckon, stands on your shoulders of the people and supporters worldwide who have unflaggingly. Some people here I've known longer than I've known my daughter's life, you know, and have been outside the embassy and with us all the while. You know, when I say with us, it's to be clear, when I say with us, to be clear, to be really clear, this small victory, part of a trend, and that trend is this. 84 members of the Australian Parliament, 2/3 of the Australian Parliament passed a motion to request the United States to drop the charges. A delegation of Australian parliamentarians, 6 of them went to the United States with Gabrielle. What is this thing? The Prime Minister of Australia has raised the matter 4 times. President Biden, outside the Rose Garden, answered a question from a journalist saying that the Australian government has made representations to us on this matter. This only happens with politicians in the circumstances that face us today, that surround us today, if there is a mass movement of interrelated people within institutions, outside of institutions, family groups, and groups like this here today, all over the world, constantly working to reverse what the heart sees and knows is an injustice and bring about a bit of justice. Just my last comment. We had a meeting with President Obrador of Mexico. He's a man of about my age, maybe a bit younger, lucky fella. And he said, in all his life, working in politics, 50 years, he found that ordinary people everywhere hungered for justice and revulsed at the sight of injustice. And I hold that to be true here today. Thanks and congratulations.
Thanks very much, John. Now remember, as you celebrate today, take from that celebration increased confidence and increased energy. Because what this gives us above all is time. And time in a political case is a precious commodity, because it gives us more time to organize and to mobilize and to make sure that we build on the victory today to ensure that Julian Assange walks free from prison and is never, ever extradited to the United States. The last speaker to talk to you today has done more than any other single individual in more difficult circumstances than any other single individual to make sure that the case of Julian Assange is won and that the freedom of the press is defended. Please welcome Stella Assange.
Thank you. I want to be very clear. Today marks a turning point. We went into court and we sat and heard the United States fumbling through their arguments, trying to paint lipstick on a pig. Well, the judges were not convinced. Everyone can see what's going on here. The United States case is offensive. It offends our democratic principles. It offends our right to know. It is an attack on journalists everywhere. We are relieved as a family that the courts took the right decision today. But how long can this go on for? Our eldest son just turned 7. All their memories of their father are in the visiting hall of Belmarsh Prison. And as the case goes along, it becomes clearer and clearer to everyone that Julian is in prison for doing good journalism, for exposing corruption, for exposing the violations on innocent people in abusive wars, for which there is impunity. And on top of that impunity, they've gone after the man who put that impunity onto the public record. The Biden administration should distance itself from this shameful prosecution. It should have done so from day one. But it may be running out of time to do the right thing. Everyone can see what should be done here. Julian must be freed. The case should be abandoned. He should be compensated. He should be given the Nobel Prize. And he should walk freely with the sand beneath his feet. He should be able to swim in the sea again. Free Assange. Free us all.
Okay, folks, I don't know What else I can say to you except see you in the pub? Craig Murray and I are definitely going for a drink. I hope you'll join us. But when you've had the drink and we've had today's celebration, do remember, we've won a battle, but we haven't won the war. And you must take from today's victory the confidence that even the biggest imperial power in the world can be defeated. It can be defeated if ordinary people like you stay mobilized. Remember what Big Bill Haywood, the union organizer from the United States, said. One finger can be broken by your opponents, but a fist can never be broken. Stay strong, free Assange, stand up for a free press.
We've just heard speeches from a wide variety of people in support of Julian Assange, including from his family, including from his wife, Stella Assange, and from Gabriel Shipton, his brother. I've got Gabriel Shipton here with me. Gabriel, how are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. I think it's encouraging that the judges rejected the prosecution's arguments today and gave Julian full appeal on the appeal point that we expected on the freedom of expression and the non-discrimination points. So I think that will be heard around the world now, and I'll travel to Washington tomorrow to continue lobbying, and this is going to be one of our main things that we're going to be telling people is that the First Amendment and freedom of expression is actually going to be on trial in the UK, right, ahead of any extradition. So I think it's really important and a good step forward and a thing that's going to propel us in this fight to free Julian.
I mean, you have logged so many miles. You have been all around the world. I mean, we were together in North Carolina a year or two ago. I mean, you have been everywhere supporting your brother as well as supporting, press freedom, free freedom, the right for people to read and say what they want. So what's the next step then? What you're going, obviously, you just said to Washington, D.C., but what's the next step for you?
We're continuing lobbying. We've got a resolution before the House, Resolution 934, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Yes.
We're continually adding Congress people as co-sponsors to that. So we're just going to keep working the levers in Congress and getting more people onto that resolution, as well as making people aware in Congress of what's actually going on, what's at stake for Americans in this case, not just journalists around the world, but actually for Americans to actually know what their governments are doing, their ability to actually reason, take in this information and actually reason to make correct decisions about which governments they elect. And I think we're getting more and more traction. Every time I go there, we're getting more and more meetings, more and more Congress people and staff meeting with us. So we're feeling the momentum, and after today's decision, we're just going to fly in there tomorrow and smash it.
And so what would you ask people to do? I mean, obviously there's this wave of supporters around the world. It's growing, but how can people continue to support your brother, your family, and of course protect our rights?
Well, everything starts from the bottom. It all starts from people here protesting on the street, doing street actions, to going and seeing your representative, taking a group of people to go and see your rep, calling them, sending emails. We've seen over and over again in this campaign that it starts with a single action. It starts from the grassroots and it works all its way up, to President Biden saying 3 weeks ago, last month, that he was considering the Australian request. And that's from the 90% popular support that exists in Australia, that the government is now advocating for Julian at the highest levels and getting those sorts of responses. So every action from the grassroots really counts. So emailing, calling your rep, turning up to actions, signing petitions, donating, whatever you can do, whatever you can manage, it all helps.
And I know you have to go, but any last words for the folks? We've got hundreds of thousands of people watching around the world. Any last words for the folks watching?
Yeah, to everyone who's been supporting, keep doing what you're doing. We couldn't do any of this work without you, without your support. Keep supporting, keep donating, keep signing petitions, keep going and seeing your reps, because without you, we wouldn't get to this point where Julian is almost free.
Right. And if I could speak for everybody, we love and respect you and your family. God bless you all. Free Julian.
Yeah, free Julian. Free Julian.
All right, thanks, Gabriel. That was Gabriel Shipton. He is, of course, the brother of Julian Assange. Obviously, a very emotional day, a very heady day, a very important day, as Julian Assange has been granted the right to a full appeal. We're getting more information on what that looks like, what that includes. But we just heard from Stella Assange, we've heard from Gabriel, we have heard from people involved with the campaign, his legal team, as well as supporters. And one of the themes that we could hear over and over again is that the United States must drop its persecution. It must drop its prosecution. That all it is bringing upon itself is shame. And the fact that, as John Rees has said over and over again, the British court just said to the American government, we don't believe you. From America's strongest ally, its oldest ally, the number one vassal of the American empire, who the American empire took over from, the British Empire. You have the British government saying to the American government right now, at least the courts saying to the American government, we do not believe you. And that is something that has to be shaking Washington, D.C. right now. I mean, of course, in their arrogance and their entitlement, will it break through? However, what we have here today, although it still has to play out, we still have to see the details come, what will come. But I think today, the hope that we entered in today with has been rewarded. All the work done by Julian Assange, his team, and of course, all of you, those who showed up here in their hundreds today, and those, of course, who showed up in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands online, watching and supporting today, the millions and millions who have supported Julian Assange for these many years. The first time I ever spoke about Julian Assange publicly was in 2010. That was 14 years ago. I mean, for Christ's sake, I was in my 30s then. You know what I mean? So this has been such a long ordeal, such a long trial for Julian and his family, but also, too, for what we've lived underneath in terms of the threat of losing our rights. We are gathering more speakers to come with you. We have we've had a full day of speakers and activity here. It's been a noisy, raucous crowd, but as we've said, as you can hear behind me, this is the noise of freedom. As the speaker says behind me, you are all now Julian Assange. That is what is coming from the crowd right now. This idea has been that it is free Assange, free us all, because in parallel to each other, one, the unjust, the cruelty, the humiliation, the barbarism extended against Julian and his family. We have also run parallel to that, this threat against us all, this threat against our freedoms, our freedom of speech, our freedom of a press, our right to know what our governments are doing. Essentially, as we've said, the right for us to read what we want, to say what we want, to listen to what we want. And today there has been a victory, at least a victory in the moment, to preclude the further oppression, the further assault, the further attack on our rights. And I have Christian joining us now. I'm going to step through, I guess, is probably the easiest way. It's a good thing when you've got a full crowd here and it's hard to maneuver. But please, for those who may not know you who are watching, a quick identity and then how you're feeling right now.
Well, I'm Christian Rapson, the editor of WikiLeaks, and I've been part of this fight for 14 years. The feeling today, it's a feeling of relief. Finally, we have a glimpse of hope and of victory at this end of this long fight. But the war is not over. It's a battle we won, but it's an extremely important battle. And it opens up the avenue now for Julian to, of course, go into court here and argue in the appeal process that he will be discriminated against in the United States, which should be easy after all the submissions here, where basically the judges have come to the conclusion that he has a ground on the basis of discrimination. Therefore, he was applied to appeal on that basis. Right. So it should be an open and short case. But it also, even if he loses an appeal process, it has opened up the avenue to an appeal to the Supreme Court of this country. So it is opened up of new avenues of legal fight. Remind you, this morning we were ready for the scenario that they would basically at the end of the day here say, no, he's not getting a chance for appeal. That would be the end of the road for Julian legally here in this country. And we would immediately have to go to the European Court of Human Rights to ask them to intervene and issue a request to stay the process. Of course, that would be a very lengthy process, maybe 2-3 years. So we are now on this winning path. The court here basically said, we don't believe you when it came to Americans. We don't believe your assurances. Your word is not a guarantee enough. And that's a big political statement coming out of the court. And that's a statement that the Biden administration should lend its ear to, because it's a signal to their side. You are on the losing path.
Right.
You need now to intervene politically and take the only rational decision in this case and drop the case entirely and end this. If they don't, it's going to be a prolonged process of humiliation for the Biden administration into the election. He doesn't want that. Nobody wants that. People are demanding justice for Julian. All around the world, people are saying, for heaven's sake, this has to come to an end.
Right.
And that is a clear message for the court.
Right. And WikiLeaks is so important to so many people because it has given voice to voiceless. Those who were erased by the empire, who the empire said, you don't matter, your names don't matter. WikiLeaks have given them voice and names. And many of those people are watching this here. And all the supporters of WikiLeaks and Julian over these years, what message do you have for them?
My message is thank you for your support, because we could not have done it without the support of the general public who understand the gravity of the case. It was a small crowd to begin with, but the crowd grew larger and larger. And we've now reached a stage where every human rights organization on this planet is recognized for their battle for freedom of speech and human rights in general, now recognizes the severity of the case and has come to Julian's side. That is important. That is because people stayed the course and did not give up the fight. So in my humbleness, I thank these people for being there, for coming outside to events, for raising awareness everywhere they go. It's so important. And the fact of the matter is, the signaling of this, to be able to come to this conclusion here today, which is not the end, but it's a strong signal, is the victory of the people.
Right.
The people who basically say, this is such injustice. And the grander signaling, which I hope we will get when Julian walks into freedom, is a signaling to everybody that we now have a path to reverse the negative, dark trend that we've been on a trajectory of for way too long.
Right.
Seeing press freedom eroded, seeing journalists imprisoned in larger number, seeing journalists assassinated and massacred in historic numbers. We need to reverse that trend. And Julian walking out of prison a free man will be a huge signal of that path. And we should aim for that. We need to take back our rights and take back what has been taken away from us. And Julian Assange, he is the man to lead that battle.
Absolutely. I know you have a lot to do, but one last thing. What do you want people to do?
I want people to continue and basically stick to this line. We are winning. We are winning. Julian will be free, and it has to happen soon. So stay on the fight. Don't stop now. We still have a way to go, but fight on. And it will be a joyful victory in the end.
Absolutely. Christian, thank you. Thank you for everything you've done, for everything WikiLeaks has done. And enjoy this day, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. That was the editor of WikiLeaks. Obviously a long path to today for so many people involved in this, most especially the family of Julian Assange. As Stella, Julian's wife, stated, during her speech from the podium there. You know, their oldest son is 7 years old. I mean, just on a personal note, for me, I visited Julian Assange in the Ecuadorian embassy in 2014, and now to be here 10 years later, witnessing this, it's so. The only thing greater than the seeming improbability of that has been the cruelty of it. And today we've seen one perhaps break in that cruelty, one break in the improbability of all this. We have seen the empire take a defeat in this moment. Of course, we have to see what comes forward with this appeal. But this granting of a full appeal for Julian Assange is something that I think all of us who have stood with Julian, stood in solidarity with him, stood against the empire, stood against this assault on our rights. This is all something that we can take today as a reward for the hard work, for the solidarity, for standing in those dark moments in support of Julian Assange, press freedom, and free speech. As you can see, things are wrapping up here. And as we go forward, we will have more information for you. I know we are going to the United States to speak with Vinny DeStefano and Chris Hedges shortly. Actually, if I could get my producer, I'm sorry, it was so loud I couldn't hear what he was just saying to me. So if people excuse me for this break in the live shot, but if Niels, can you let me know again where we're going right now? Or Inga? All right, so my apologies, but you know, as we stand here in front of this Royal Court of Justice, and as has been said over and over again, whether it's by Stella Assange, whether it's by John Rees, whether it's by the brother of Julian Assange, whether it's with the brother of Julian Assange and or the editor of WikiLeaks, the United States government needs to drop. Julian Assange the United States government needs to drop its persecution and prosecution of Julian Assange, because the British courts have said to them, we don't believe you. We have Rebecca Vincent with Reporters Without Borders here. Rebecca, hi, Rebecca. Why don't you come over on this side, please? Otherwise, we'll get all tangled up. How are you, Rebecca? You're with Reporters Without Borders. You've been involved with this for a long time. How are you feeling right now in this moment?
It's still sinking in a bit because, frankly, it's been a long time since we've had any good news in this case. I think the last time was really the 4th of January, 2021.
Okay.
Okay, so we've been fighting this whole time. I think, of course, we always hope for the best, and I have to, as a campaigner, I always maintain that hope that actually we can get this case tossed out at some point, we can get Julian out. But when we have these moments where actually you see that maybe the system will actually work and deliver some form of justice at this late stage, it's great. So I guess at the moment it's relief is mostly what I feel, but actually we've all been working so hard for this, and I hope that the court is starting to see it in the right way, that we can actually have a legal means of preventing extradition instead of a continued political battle, because of course this is a political case.
Right. So going to the journalism side of all this, obviously this is a big development, right? If I could state the obvious. Is this going to bring on more support from mainstream media, from corporate media for Julian and for the broader implications of this case?
You know what? I hope so. And I think that support has been increasing in recent months and years. We've seen sort of more journalists around the world really waking up to the fact that it will impact them too. And I think that's slowly been coming back. But of course, when there's good news, that feels like a moment to join a cause. So I hope that we'll get some attention today from those who either were on the fence or maybe those who weren't quite convinced if they should speak out. Because it's not just about Julian Assange. It's about every journalist around the world that works with leaked classified information, all media organizations that publish stories based on this, which is quite a normal journalistic practice. So, and it's not just about that, it's also about all of our right to know, because of course we have the right to know these stories. The information published was in the public interest. 13 years on, that shouldn't even be a question for debate, but yet the man who took the risk to do this is still being punished to this day. I think it's time for more solidarity there, so I hope that's what comes of this good moment.
Because from what I could gather in the last hour or two, this relates to protection of free press. Right, not just only free speech, but free press as well, in terms of their concerns why these assurances from the United States government weren't to be believed.
Well, because it is ultimately a question of the First Amendment, and the First Amendment is meant to protect all forms of free speech, including freedom of the press. But it's positive now that that will be considered in this full appeal, because it's been some time since we've had a real consideration of the substance at the heart of this case, which is about press freedom. It is about journalism. That's why my organization defends Julian Assange, because it impacts global press freedom. It impacts journalists all around the world. So we hope that that moment in court, which sounds like it might be coming up sooner rather than later, will shed more light on that and lead to a legal prevention of this horrific extradition.
Just to take it, one or two more questions if you have the time, because I know you're busy. But to take it a step back, we see it happening to journalists around the world, particularly in Gaza. How does this affect all that? How does this tie into what we see as an attack on press freedom, particularly so it's happening in Gaza for someone who, is with Reporters Without Borders? Yeah.
The thing is, the way that the U.S. government is going after Julian Assange is particularly alarming, because he's the first publisher being pursued in this way. So that's the danger, is that if that precedent is set, any journalist, any publisher, any journalistic source anywhere in the world could be pursued in the same way. So it's that. We could see that applied in very different types of reporting. So this is maybe for them a test in a way. If they can get away with doing this for an organization that isn't considered mainstream, for a person who may be in many ways a bit of an imperfect victim, shall we say, if they can get away with it with Julian Assange, mark my words, we will see many other cases of this. And next time it might be something much closer to home for the mainstream media or for the rest of us. So it's that, it's what it represents, it's what could be at stake, and that really alarming precedent that once it is set cannot be reined back in.
Right. And last question I have for you. People watching, we've got hundreds of thousands of people watching. What do you want them to do?
I want them to continue to seek out independent information on this, to keep sharing information, because this is the main thing is many people frankly still believe things that are not true about Julian Assange or about this case. I have to say, as a campaigning organization, that's been a big challenge for us. Many other cases, we're trying to inform people about something they don't know about and to mobilize them. This, we're trying to correct a narrative. We're trying to get people to change their minds. That starts with each of us everywhere around the world at home, having conversations with our own friends, our family members, right into our elected representatives, trying to make sure that those that we can engage in conversation with and inform have accurate information as a basic level for anything else, because everything else builds on that. If we know the truth about this case, if we know what's really at stake, why this is being done, how it's being done, and what that means for everybody else, it would be impossible to stay silent. So I think in tuning into this, that's a good first step, because obviously people following today care about the case. They're following what's happening in UK courts, but we all have it within our power to do small things that can actually lead to much bigger change. And of course, you can support the legal campaign for Julian. You can support organizations like ours that are working on this. There's lots of things financially that can be done too if people have the means. But I think first that awareness and that sharing of information and keeping the story everywhere so that it's unavoidable. And that I've always been impressed by the grassroots activism in this case. You can be at a remote place in another country somewhere and see Free Assange poster more than any other case I've worked on. So keep it up. I think it does make a difference.
The pressure works. The pressure works. Exactly. Rebecca Vincent, Reporters Without Borders. Please support Reporters Without Borders. Thank you so much for all the work you've done on this, all the work you continue to do on this, not just for Julian Assange's case, but for press freedom in general.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We have another person who's going to come in and give us some updates, someone who's been involved with the Julian Assange campaign for quite a while. We spoke to her earlier today, but Chloe, come back in.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
I'm actually, I'm emotional.
Yes. Yeah. It's okay. I mean, same thing too. When it first got announced, it was, for me, don't start crying.
Yeah.
And then when Stella started, now I'm bringing it off, making you like this, but it's okay because I think a lot of us feel this way.
Yeah.
Right?
I want to take the win. When we get it, I want to take it, and I'm trying to. Julian's still sat in Belmarsh prison. Julian was too sick to attend today. I have to keep that at the forefront of my mind. This fight is not over, but this was a win, and we needed it, and something is changing, and I can see it. He's going to be home with his wife and his kids. He's going to be swimming in that sea, avoiding all sorts of dangerous creatures that exist in the Australian oceans. I wouldn't go in it, but that guy's been swimming with the sharks for a long time.
Right, exactly.
He can handle the Australian Ocean. but I think it's coming. I think change is coming. I think justice is coming. I think the guy should get the Nobel Prize. I think it's happening, and I just feel I'm trying to hold it together, but I couldn't let myself think anything potentially positive might happen. We've been let down so many times at every stage, and this was not that. This was not that. Something shifted, and it's going to keep shifting until we bring Julian Assange home.
Right. I mean, hey, we're up against the empire here.
Yeah.
Right. So why should we have hope? But we do, and we have hope because of this.
Pressure.
Right. Pressure. We have hope because of the solidarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you've been doing for us today, you've been monitoring the tweets. What was that like, watching the
Well, it was intense, and as I said to you off camera, I sort of feel like as I'm explaining it, I'm trying to get my own head around it, and that's part of the facade. They want it to feel confusing. They want there to be very legalistic terms and distinctions that are so nuanced to normal people who are just trying to understand where justice exists in this case. And they're trying to fudge it, they're trying to cover it up as much as they can. And today, the sun shone through, justice stepped forward into the light. It's the beginning of this journey, but it is not over. And, I would just like to thank everyone that's been here today, thank our supporters, thank everyone around the world who is watching, who is mobilized. There are so many actions happening today in so many different countries, and we see those people. We love those people and we need them more than ever. So this is not the end, it's just the beginning, but we have something to hold on to now. And oh my God, I'm holding on to it. This was good.
And so you're with the Assange team.
Yes.
So
yes.
What do you want people to do? I mean, obviously you just said we're going to keep fighting, but specifically, what can people be doing to support you now?
So, firstly, people need to watch today because the information is going to keep coming out today. So we go over to Doughty Street, we hand over to our US team for streaming. Please stay engaged today. But in general, we take this win and we use it to make us angrier, more mobilized. We're out on the streets. We've had it now. We've got the break. Right. And I'm pushing till that is removed, until Julian comes out of prison. And Julian is going to come out of prison. He's going to be a free man.
This enthusiasm that you've got, the confidence you have, and this idea that we're winning. And that over and over again, we're winning, we're winning, and we are winning. It's because of people like you. It's because of this team. It's because of the millions around the world who've supported Julian Assange. So,
especially just as my last thing, I would like to pay tribute to Stella.
Right.
And the way she has managed this unbelievable, unbearable situation with her children, being the most incredible mother you could imagine, doing the job of mother and father while Julian is languishing in Belmarsh prison, has been an unbelievable and humbling thing to watch. And then she comes out here and she talks to the crowd and she knows every single detail about the case. That is an unbelievable woman. Yeah. And so, we all remain committed. We remain laser focused on justice, and justice is now within reach.
You look at her and you see her standing in defiance of the empire, and you see her winning. And when she was talking earlier, my thoughts were, I'm not sure if we'll get to talk to her or not, but my thoughts to myself were, I don't know how I'm going to talk to her and not break down myself. I mean, all the love and respect we have for her, because she has been the leader of this movement. So, but Chloe, thank you so much for all the work you've been doing, for what this entire team has been doing. This would not be possible if not for people like yourself. So thank you.
Likewise, and to the supporters as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Chloe.
So much.
Thank you. I mean, we have this the same things. Emotion here. For people who are not here, I can tell you, it's just rushing through everybody. It's affecting everybody. And we have now Jeremy Corbyn with us. Jeremy. Hello again.
Hi, I'm back again.
You're back again. Different. Before we were uncertain as to what would happen. Many people were hopeful that the court would rule this way. But what are your thoughts right now?
I'm very relieved and very pleased because they haven't managed to rule emphatically against Julian. They haven't ruled that he must go to the USA, and we're not being forced to go to the European Court of Human Rights as we would have done straight away. And so this means it's all got to be done over again in the Supreme Court here. That's good. We'll fight it. And look at the people here. We're keen, we're desperate, and we're going to do it. I know to Julian, it's longest spell now in Belmarsh. And if Julian ever sees this, Julian, just want you to know a lot of people support you. There's a lot of love for you out there, and we're going to fight this thing through all the way.
Absolutely. Love and respect. We were just talking about Stella and the role she has played in this, and the fact that she could go and stand up against the American empire representing her family and this movement, and then come out and in defiance of the American empire. And that's one of the things, Jeremy, you've been a global leader. And one of the things you really have been has been an anti-imperialist leader when we've had a dearth of those. And so going forward for the anti-imperialist movement, for lack of a better term, some people who are against all these wars, what does this say to you?
Exactly. When we were talking at the rally earlier this morning, I was making the point there that Julian exposed the dishonesty and the lies surrounding Afghanistan, surrounding Iraq, Libya, Syria, all the other wars. And then you think of the refugees that are in Calais, often from Afghanistan and other places. They're the victims of war. And what Julian has done is exposed the lies of war and exposed the dishonesty of it and the dishonesty of the arms trade. And who's being punished? Julian. Who's not being punished? Those that ordered the shooting, those that ordered the bombing, those that paid the arms industry. The world's turned upside down. But you know what? Today, we've turned it just a little few degrees the other way. And I want to say a huge thank you to Stella and all of the Assange team, because they're doing, have done, and will always do a fantastic job.
Right, exactly. And the calls, one after another, the U.S. should drop. There's nothing but shame for the U.S. going forward. There's nothing but shame for the U.S. preceding this. But what do you think the U.S. is going to do?
My message to President Biden is quite simply this. You call yourself a Democrat. You walk in a tradition, some of which is a good tradition, of people that stood up, those that stood up on Watergate, those that stood up against the Vietnam War, those that stood up for the civil rights movement. That tradition is, as he knows, alive and well in many parts of the USA. Join that tradition. Drop the appeal and free Julian. It's in your hands.
Absolutely. And last thing, Jeremy asked you earlier, we weren't certain what was going to happen. Now that we know what happens, what do you want people to do?
Carry on campaigning and intensify that campaigning, because yes, a court acts in an independent way. Obviously, I fully understand that. But you know what? Courts respond to the atmosphere that's there, the atmosphere of society, the atmosphere in the media, and the atmosphere of public opinion. The court of public opinion is with Julian. Let's make sure everybody knows it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Have a good day. We see lots of support for not just Julian Assange, but for those who are supporting Julian Assange. And we have, now we're going to talk to Craig Murray again. Craig Murray, former ambassador for the United Kingdom. He has been a staunch and ardent supporter of Julian. His commentary, his analysis has been crucial for so many of us to understand this. I'm looking for Craig. Up there he is. Yeah. Craig, if you're ready.
Sorry, mate.
Greg, how are you feeling?
I feel very pleased. I thought today would go well, and we haven't actually secured Julian's release, but we're definitely headed in that direction. I think today went, as well as the judges could do.
Right. I'm getting something in my ear about how we have almost 200,000 viewers. And when we spoke earlier today, Craig, you brought up how hopeful you were. And that was the first time this morning, after I've been here for a couple hours, I heard that word. And then I heard that word throughout. And so do you think what's occurred here is, it's emboldened this movement and made it unstoppable?
I think that's exactly right. I think we've turned a corner today. I think we've been fighting defensively
this whole time. Now we are on the attack, and now it's the United States government which is under attack, if you like, and their position in the courtroom is looking very shaky. It's very hard to see today how the judges could rule that the assurances are not sufficient to prevent a hearing, which they did, and that there is a case that his freedom of expression is being undermined and that he faces discrimination on grounds of nationality. It's very difficult to see how they can come to that determination here and then not find the same thing at the appeal here, which is just going to hear exactly the same arguments, exactly the same evidence all over again. And I don't see how that comes to a different determination. So I think the Biden administration, the executive, have to look at this. The prosecution have to look at this. The justice have to look at this. I think we are going to lose this. We are going to be humiliated. We really need to find a way to back out of this, because we're going to look very bad indeed.
Yeah, and I assume you're going to be writing about this.
I shall be. I'm going to. Well, first of all, I'm going to go to the pub and have a few pints to celebrate. Because
I hope to join you there.
I hope you will. We haven't had too many days in this struggle so far to be celebrating, but I think this is a very good day for freedom of expression, and it's worth saying that they granted leave to appeal on two grounds: discrimination of nationality and freedom of expression. So,
right.
You know, the judges here are saying to the United States, you have to uphold your own First Amendment.
Now, I had a note to ask you that some of the previous assurances that the court did not allow, they seem to maybe have reversed that. Did I get that note correctly?
No, I don't think that's correct. I think the previous assurances which the court had accepted from the United States on, for example, how Julian would be treated in US jails and on healthcare, I think that those remain accepted. Those haven't been undermined by this. But the assurances at play here have been rejected. I mean, what the court has said to the United States essentially is, we do not believe your assurances. And that's really, coming from the High Court here to the US government, that's a hell of a statement. We do not accept what you are telling us.
I mean, from the empire that handed off, from your empire that handed off to my empire, if you will, this type of language, this type of act, this "we don't believe you" is tremendous. It really is, and I think we're gonna. What is this opening up more of? But as somebody who has been on the brutalizing end of a government that you've upset, how do you personally feel right now?
Oh well,
because a lot of people watching this are very big supporters of yours, very big fans of yours, and so yeah.
Well, my overwhelming feeling, of course, intellectually, I'm extremely committed to the arguments of freedom of information, the arguments of people's right to know the truth, the arguments that government should not be allowed to commit crimes and conceal them. Those are important. All the libertarian agenda there, I'm committed to. But my overwhelming feeling is a personal feeling for Julian, my friend, and his family, who I'm very close to. And I know what it's like to be banged up in jail. You know, I was in solitary confinement for 4 months. Solitary confinement for 4 months for journalism. Julian's had 5 years of it. I know how he feels. I know how debilitating that is. I know how desperate we are on a personal basis to get him out. And yes, my writing and my analysis will be full of the more intellectual points. But my emotion, where I'm coming from, is this desire to rescue my friend and reunite him with his family.
There's the emotion here when standing here when we heard he's been granted right of full appeal. I mean, of course, the cheer, but the feeling. You could feel the emotion coming out of this. And I know people at home watching this, people, the hundreds of thousands we have watching it. Last question, I'll let you go get to the pub. I want to get there too as well. What do you want them to do?
I think what we need now is we need the Justice Department to drop the case. This case is in itself an assault on the First Amendment. This is a fundamental case
about prosecuting a journalist for revealing criminal acts. And I should say, I was a whistleblower myself. I blew the whistle on the torture and extraordinary rendition program. I actually didn't get jailed for that. I expected to be jailed for that. And when you're a whistleblower, that's something you accept can happen. That's a moral responsibility you take on yourself. You think, I'm breaking my contract of employment, I'm doing this in the public interest. I accept that may have consequences for myself. And I did accept it would have consequences for myself. But I wouldn't have expected the journalist I gave the information to be jailed.
Right.
And when the state starts going after journalists, so that's what Julian's not a whistleblower, he's a journalist. Right. When the state starts going after the journalists, that really is an end to freedom. You know, your rights to know as a public and your right to freedom of expression has disappeared when the state starts persecuting journalists like this.
Yes. Where do people find your writing?
You find my writing on my blog, which is my name, craigmurray.org.uk, craigmurray.org.uk, or Google my name, Craig Murray, and then you'll get a huge number of mainstream media articles about what a terrible human being I am.
Don't believe any of that. Keep scrolling down, and eventually, yes. Yeah. Because I read it myself, and people should. By the way, Craig, thank you so much. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I know what you're going to continue to do. Thank you. All right, thanks, Craig. All right, that was former Ambassador Craig Murray, as we were talking, obviously whistleblower himself, someone who was jailed for upsetting his government. We have spoken to so many people here today who were involved in this in one way or another, standing outside the Royal Courts of Justice. We have spoken to people, we have spoken to family, we have spoken to those on who are professional colleagues of Julian. We've spoken to those on the Assange team, and then we've spoken to people who are journalists, who are academics, people who have been involved in this in so many ways, because it is about the persecution and prosecution, the cruel punishment of a man and his family, because he dared to expose the crimes of the American empire. He dared to reveal war crimes. He dared to reveal all aspects of malfeasance, all the aspects of wrongdoing, criminality. But there's also, too, very much the aspects of this, of how it affects so many of us. This case has profound implications and consequences for us all in terms of our right to a free speech, our right to a free press, and the right to know what our governments are doing. I'm sorry, my producer was saying something, and I spoke over him. But I know we have others who maybe want to speak. I also know we will be going to the U.S. to speak to people in the U.S. about this case. But right now, I think it's important for those who are watching this, if you are able to share this, to like it, to spread it, because though hundreds of thousands of you have watched it today, watching it live, we can reach the millions. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the crowd, show the crowd a bit, and so we're going to break to go there and let you folks see what's been going on behind me in front of the court from the hundreds and hundreds of Julian Assange supporters who showed up today to support him. Okay.
Well, I'm just on the Twitter.
Just on Twitter, yeah.
enviar igualzinho onde eu não posso ficar aqui futuro.
Gente, sensacional, como vocês acompanharam aí, então, o Julian Assange conseguiu o direito de fazer um novo apelo contra a extradição para os Estados Unidos. Então, ele ganhou a permissão de apelar contra a ordem de que ele deveria ser mandado para os Estados Unidos para enfrentar julgamento pelo vazamento de segredos militares. A decisão significa que Assange vai poder contestar as afirmações sobre... Vamos ouvir agora aqui o que está rolando.
Fidel, you were with the Ecuadorian embassy. You sat with Julia. Could you explain that? Your involvement with him, how long you knew him for? Just basically a general, how you're feeling today.
I'm feeling hopeful, finally, after so long. Julian Assange is my personal friend. I know him for many years. I knew him before he came asking for protection from my country, and I'm very proud to help him to get that protection. And I spent many years with him inside the embassy. So I'm following this case very, very closely, and today I feel hopeful that finally, after such a long legal and political war, we have won another battle. Yeah.
You don't live here in the UK, do you?
Well, I live in the UK.
Okay,
Yes.
do you? Okay,
Yes.
but still you came here today because
Yeah.
it's important to be with your friend.
Yes.
Or at least in solidarity, your friend. Julian, of course, wasn't here today because of his health, a consequence of all these years of punishment.
Yep.
So, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are your next steps in terms of supporting Julian?
Well, my next thing is publishing a book, which is a memoir about the whole experience in the embassy and the asylum. and I very much hope that this year is gonna come out already.
Okay, so how many years were you in the embassy with Julian?
Julian spent 7 years in the embassy. Of those 7 years, I was 6 years with him.
Okay.
The last year, I was not there.
Okay. But that's 6 years.
Yes.
So really, I mean, this idea of like your friendship is something that's very deep. You were there for all that pressure. You saw,
We know each other very closely. Yes.
Yeah. I visited one time in 2014.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people had this misconception that it's a big building. You pull up near Harrods, and it is a big building, and then you realize it's half of one floor. And so, do you have anything you want to say about what that was like for him?
Julian described it very, very well as living in a spaceship. That idea that an embassy is a big and luxurious department is wrong if you are talking about the Ecuadorian embassy. It's only 200 meters square. It's situated, as you said, next to Harrods, but surrounded by other high buildings. So the little sun that London normally has does not get through the embassy.
Right.
The embassy did not have an exterior patio where he could go out and have a sunlight. The embassy did not have a garden or anything like that. So Julian Assange was for 7 years, 24 hours a day, inside a little apartment, in very hard conditions, full time under artificial light. And that had, I think, big cost on his physical and his mental health.
Right. And then now, of course, 5 years essentially in isolation in Belmarsh.
Yes. I don't know what's really worse. When he was at the embassy, the first 6 years he was protected. He was allowed to have visitors. He was allowed to work, but he could not walk out. He couldn't have proper medical treatment inside the embassy. In Belmarsh, he is isolated. There are awful conditions, but every now and then he walks on the patio. He has sunlight, and he has medical treatment. So both experiences very, very hard for a person who should not be in these conditions.
Right.
Julian is not free from the last 14 years.
I mean, it's safe to say there's few people in this world who know Julian better than you do.
Well, I think his family probably, yes, but yes, I am very privileged to know him well.
And so, if you're able to talk to him, maybe you are able to if you can get, what would you say to him right now?
I would say, hold on, Julian, hold on. Everybody's fighting outside here for you. We're gonna win this one. We're gonna win this one. You're gonna be free.
And we hundreds of thousands of people watching. Once, of course, I'll turn to millions of people watching this. What do you want to say to those who are supporting Julian?
Well, I'm going to say to them is that if the judges, if the courts finally decide in justice, decide to free Julian, finally, it's not because they are very just, it's not because they are benevolent, it's because the fight that people are doing for Julian outside. So he depends on us. This is a political case. And it's the politics what's going to decide the fate of Julian. And in politics, people sometimes can win, and we're going to win this one.
Wait, Fidel, thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Fidel Barras. He was a member of the Ecuadorian embassy. He knew Julian for 6 years while Julian was in captivity there. And, of course, for so many people here, the emotion of the day for people like Fidel, who was a dear friend, a good friend, a close friend of Julian, what today means to them. I'm going to bring in Matt Kennard, who is a journalist. Hi, Matt. Good to meet you. Move out of the way here if you want to step this way. you've been covering this for a long time. You know, your thoughts today. Actually, let me start. What did you think was going to occur this morning, or what were your feelings this morning as you came here?
Well, you know, we've lost so many times since, well, I think in the whole of the Assange's legal wranglings in the UK, going back to 2010, there's only been 2 decisions that have gone his way. One was the original Primeira decision, and that was on very narrow grounds. She blocked it on health grounds. It was then overturned. And then today. So I'm used to, well, we're all used to seeing the judges come against him. So I think it was a psychologically powerful moment, right, to see judges actually listen to the arguments, not be dismissive. Because I was inside today, and I've been inside for nearly all the hearings, right, and many of the previous judges, have acted like they're just being dismissive of Assange's lawyers and the case that they're making, and they weren't like that. And actually, today, it felt like the US were blown out of the water. To be honest with you, they had barely any arguments. They didn't take up all their time. They were making.
Would you say that they came into it not serious about it?
Well, you know, I wouldn't like to say that because it's speculation, but it did seem like they weren't trying. Like there was one point where the US lawyer said, "Well, look, Chelsea Manning didn't have First Amendment privileges," and then at the time I was thinking, "Well, of course he didn't. He's a government employee who leaked, very different to a publisher." And just to make that kind of and it was picked up on eventually by Assange's lawyers. But it was just an example of how they seemed scattergun and not really to have a coherent argument coming back against the Assange lawyers. So if that can carry over to the new appeal, then hopefully we might get some progress. The interesting thing is, I don't think we should even be here. Everyone who is given what is effectively a life sentence, which is what it is if he's extradited to the US, right, by a single judge, which is what the system does, should have a right to appeal that decision, because that's just a right every human being should have. So the fact he has to fight this hard to even get the right to appeal, and also now the appeal is on quite constricted grounds, he should be allowed to appeal all the substantive issues, which he's not been allowed. So it's a mixed emotions. I mean, I think psychologically it's really important because the US case is now shaky in a way it wasn't previously. So many of the judges have come back and said, no, there's nothing to answer here. Right. The US, whereas now, the psychology is, well, look, they won easily.
What was the tone and the tenor of the court? How was their attitude in terms of were they angry? I mean, like, what was their attitude? Because out here, you can interpret it as they're saying, we don't believe you. You know, and you can interpret that very forcefully. You can interpret it in any way you want, really. But you're sitting there as a journalist. How did you take their tone and tenor?
With the US side,
or the judges?
The judges, yeah. It's hard to see because another facet of this whole circus is that as journalists, we're put in a side room where you can barely make out the faces on the screens. It's like being in I was going to say the 1980s, but it's pre-1980s. It's 1960s. So I can't tell I couldn't see what their facial expressions were, but it did seem like they were listening, and they made the right decision, effectively. There was not really any arguments about the death penalty assurance because that was an open and shut case. I guess they gave the assurance. But on the other stuff, it felt like judges were just taking in what was being said. And to be honest with you, with the dynamics in the court, it was clear that Assange's lawyers were just had the truth on their side and had the facts on their side. And the US lawyers were on the back foot, really.
And obviously, a lot you could talk about with what happened today. What are you planning to write about? So what's the most prescient things coming out of this for you today?
I mean, we're obviously now going to have to prepare for the new appeal, which will be a hugely important hearing and trial, because the first extradition hearing, which was presided over by District Judge Vanessa Barreta, that aired all the substantive issues. And she basically agreed with the US on every one of those substantive issues. So there was days of top academics, people talking about the threat to press freedom, and the threat to the First Amendment, and the threat to journalists globally by the fact that the US Espionage Act can now be used everywhere if Assange goes. So, but then after that, it got much more constricted, the hearings. So it was like very legal minutiae and stuff. Whereas this, now he's got the right to appeal. Hopefully we'll have days of those substantive issues on First Amendment, press freedom, all the stuff that is has global historical importance will get aired, and what happens in the courtroom then will define the future of investigative journalism, not just here, not just in the US, but globally, because the precedent set here in that appeal will be used by repressive rulers all over the world to justify the imprisoning and murder or whatever it is of journalists that do work that they don't like.
Right. I mean, we can't overstate the importance of this. No. Really, there's no hyperbole that we're expressing here. So where can people follow your work? Where can people read?
Well, I work for Declassified UK, which is a website which covers UK foreign policy and the national security state here. But we've done all the investigative work of the legal case around Assange, because I was saying actually earlier, like the most shocking part of this whole case and all of WikiLeaks' work up to now, for me, it hasn't been the revelations about war crimes and stuff. I knew that was happening, knew that kind of stuff happened, and the service that Assange did by revealing it is historic and extremely brave. But he's exposed the British legal system in a way I don't know if it's ever been exposed, because you have, why are we here? Why is he in Belmont? Why are we here when he's on record as there's a plot on record by the country that wants to extradite him, that they wanted to assassinate him, number one. There's that same country that wants to extradite him was spying on the privileged conversations with his lawyers. Any actual justice system which applied the rule of law in any kind of cursory way would have thrown out the case as soon as that came in. So the fact we're still here, and we have to celebrate the fact he even has a right to appeal decision by a single judge to spend the rest of his life in prison, is absurd. And so I would tell people to go to Declassified and check out the major irregularities which has happened from the start in this case, and the conflicts of interest of the judges, including the ones that are there today. It's just legion. And interestingly, I'll finish with this. It's not just the justice system that he's exposed with his case. It's also the media. Because where the hell are the media? There's all these irregularities, all these conflicts of interest that if they were in the mainstream media, even one story we've done had appeared in maybe the Guardian or the Times, it would have changed the case because they'd have had to answer to it. Right? They would have been made accountable. And he's exposed to the fact that the media operates largely as an arm of the state, which is why he's in Belmarsh prison, because he took journalism too seriously. And he was a threat to power, which is what you're meant to be as a journalist, and so they put him in prison. And all the rest of the journalists that basically don't show any solidarity with him in this country and don't cover his legal case, he embarrassed them because he showed them up as arms of the state, largely. They do some good stories, but largely arms of the state, and they don't like being exposed, so they become willing executioners alongside the justice system. But I have hope. I'm more hopeful today than I've been in the whole case. And I also think it's a testament to the activists who have been on this case for years and years. And they're often people that get no recognition and no one knows their names, but they're out, especially this case particularly. There's Assange activists that are super, super dedicated, out in the rain, shine, outside Belmarsh, outside the courtroom. And I think they've had an impact. Activism has had an impact. So testament to them, and we've got to keep going, and we've got to keep raising the issue and get it as mainstream as possible, and we can win.
Absolutely. Matt Kennard, Declassified UK, your work is fantastic.
Thank you.
I utilize it. I encourage people to, if folks here are not following Declassified UK, please do it. But Matt, thanks so much for your work. Right. Thank you. You know, what Matt brought up there was so important about what supporters have done. It's because of the pressure put on the British government, put on the British courts. It has forced the British system it's put the British system in a dilemma. Either go along with the Americans or go along with this preposterous miscarriage of justice and pull its own house down upon itself. But Chip Gibbons is here with us. Chip, come on in.
Good to see you again, Matt.
Good to see you again.
And on a better circumstances this time.
Much.
Oi, Sara.
Boa tarde. Bom dia, Sara. Bom dia, pessoal. A gente vai deixar agora, eu vou tentar mudar aqui o sistema de apresentação, apesar que eu sou um pouco tosco nisso, então peço desculpas por eventual erro. Você já está vendo aqui a nossa convidada no cantinho da tela. você já conhece. A Leonora quer fazer... A Leonora está aqui comigo ao vivo também. Nós acompanhamos toda a transmissão feita diretamente pelo canal da Stella Assange, a esposa de Julian Assange. Uma grande vitória hoje, pelo menos essa é a primeira impressão. A gente vai traz aqui a advogada Sara Vivacqua, que Leonora quer apresentar a Sara. Enquanto isso, eu vou tentar colocá-la grande aqui.
Acho bom.
Vamos ver se eu consigo. Não,
E agora põe a... Cadê a Sara?
Não. Vamos fazer aqui. Vamos fazer assim, vamos deixar assim e a gente vê.
Tá. Sara, que bom que você está aqui com a gente. Hoje é um dia, acho que bem importante, né, por essa luta aí de muito tempo, né, pela liberdade de Julian Assange. Você pode nos contar, então, o que aconteceu hoje em Londres? Som.
Você está sem som.
Só ligar o som, Sara.
Olá, Rodolfo e Leonora, muito obrigada por poder estar aqui comentando com vocês. Hoje realmente era um dia muito importante, no caso do Julian Assange, né? O Julian Assange, para quem não se lembra, é um jornalista americano que está detido, australiano que está detido há mais ou menos 5 anos ilegalmente no Reino Unido, desde 11 de abril de 2019, na prisão de segurança máxima de Belmarsh, por ter revelado os crimes de guerra dos Estados Unidos no Iraque, no Afeganistão, ter revelado os cabos diplomáticos que mostravam como as embaixadas americanas eram verdadeiros enclaves de espionagem. Então, a Assange, se extraditar aos Estados Unidos, pode pegar até 175 anos de prisão em confinamento solitário. Então, é isso que está sendo, esse é o objeto da ação. Se Assange será ou não extraditado nos Estados Unidos para ser julgado com crimes de espionagem. Na verdade, são verdadeiros direitos dos jornalistas, né? Então, dia 26 de março, a corte indeferiu o recurso do Assange que pedia a possibilidade de apelar. O que significa isso? Nem toda apelação é um direito automático. As cortes têm que julgar a admissibilidade, se a pessoa requerente pode apelar ou não. E, naquele momento, no dia 26 de março, a corte negou o direito de apelar do Assange e falou: nós o extraditaremos se os Estados Unidos não nos apresentarem 2 condições.
Ou eu corte
de que ele não haverá mais indiciamentos. E se for garantido também de que ele terá o direito que o direito fundamental de liberdade de imprensa e de expressão possa ser aplicado para ele, o que no início foi negado por ele ser australiano e não americano. Bem, hoje eu considero...
Houve uma interrupção no seu som.
Hoje eu considero...
Você estava falando, hoje eu considero, e aí o seu som foi interrompido. Sara? Oi?
Sara?
Oi?
que essa foi a maior vitória legal até agora. Por quê? Agora vocês estão me vendo, né? Então, a corte...
Então, você considera que essa foi a maior vitória legal de Julian Assange até agora?
Considero por 2 razões. A primeira, porque a corte britânica não acredita, não dá credibilidade à chamada garantia diplomática dos Estados Unidos, o que em outro momento ela deu. Então, isso eu acho que é algo que muda a situação um pouco. A segunda é que essa apelação do Assange, diferentemente das outras, ela vai poder ser feita com todas as razões legais. Ou seja, as questões envolvendo o direito dos jornalistas, a liberdade de imprensa, poderão ser arguídas, e até hoje não tinham sido arguídas nesse processo. E quando a juíza dá para ele o direito, fala que em 2021, no dia 4 de janeiro, a juíza fala que ele não seria extraditado, era simplesmente por razões opressivas, ou seja, por causa da condição Asperger dele, pelo risco de suicídio, mas ela deu razão aos Estados Unidos em todas as razões legais que falavam da liberdade de expressão. Então, isso aqui, em termos da liberdade, essa decisão inicial, que em 2019 nega a apelação, ela era boa para o Assange, mas péssima para a liberdade de expressão. Essa agora é importante porque poderá ser arguído todas as razões legais, considerando a liberdade de expressão. Aí agora uma coisa assim que eu achei muito interessante aí nessa cobertura da corte, eu não sei se vocês conseguiram apreciar, tiveram a mesma percepção, de algumas declarações de como se agora o sistema estivesse funcionando, né? Eu considero essa uma análise errada. Você vê, por exemplo, a representante do Repórteres Sem Fronteiras falando agora nós temos uma esperança de que o sistema judiciário esteja funcionando. Eu acho isso uma declaração bastante inocente. E uma declaração que não entende, que não tem uma compreensão do que é o imperialismo e do que é um lawfare. A corte aqui não está funcionando porque está preocupada com o direito de expressão. Eu acredito que isso, como é um lawfare, é uma conveniência política. Nós não sabemos muito bem as razões. Ou, quem sabe, uma saída elegante para logo falar que não vai haver mais a perseguição do Assange porque ficou politicamente custosa para a Austrália. Ou, se é uma maneira de ganhar tempo, até que as eleições norte-americanas em novembro tenham se encerrado. Eu acredito que essa decisão não tem uma motivação legal, não tem uma motivação garantista, não tem uma motivação constitucional. Ela tem, com certeza, na minha opinião, considerando tudo que nós vimos e quem são as cortes britânicas, uma motivação de autopreservação e de política. Nós sabemos que agora a Austrália, o governo da Austrália, tem feito um lobby grande nos Estados Unidos e que o Joe Biden começou a se encontrar diante de uma pressão que não existia antes, ali do Albanese e da Austrália. Ainda é uma pressão muito modesta. A Austrália podia ter parado essa extradição há muito tempo. Mas tem certas coisas que os governantes fazem para o seu público. Então, pode ser muito bem uma maneira de reconciliar com o público australiano, reconciliar com o público americano, dentro dessa perda de legitimidade e dessa perda pessoal de credibilidade desses presidentes e desse primeiro-ministro. Joe Biden hoje é considerado o que é um genocida que ajuda um outro genocida chamado Netanyahu. Então, para ele, o Assange pode ser um problema adicional nos Estados Unidos. Nós não sabemos. Então, eu fico um pouco surpreendida com essas declarações que foram feitas de algumas pessoas aí, inclusive da campanha, de que a justiça estaria sendo feita. A justiça não está sendo feita, a justiça aqui é simplesmente um resultado colateral da política, porque isso é um lawfare e a gente nunca pode esquecer. E também gostaria de lembrar que os Repórteres Sem Fronteira têm posições bastante imperialistas com relação ao jornalismo no mundo. Por exemplo, eles defendem Navalny, um autoproclamado etnofascista. Eles estão na defesa do Navalny, como estão na defesa do Jimmy Lai, um bilionário Hong Kong, que promove de maneira ilegal e financia forças em Hong Kong contra o regime, vamos digamos, que seja ditatorial em Hong Kong. São pessoas que têm ambições de revolução colorida. Então, é muito importante a gente entender. O Repórter Sem Fronteira também tirou agora, semana passada, um relatório sobre os palestinos, sobre os jornalistas palestinos, negando que muitos desses palestinos, diminuindo o número de vítimas palestinas, e negando que eles tenham sido mortos no curso da sua profissão legal, colocando eles como mero vítimas de guerra. Então, eu acho assim que a gente não pode esquecer de que dentro das causas justas existem grandes e pequenas compreensões do que essa causa é. Existem interesses próprios numa causa, né? Muitas pessoas fazem carreira em cima dessas causas também. Então, eu discordo dessa análise que a justiça está sendo feita. Acho que a justiça aqui é um resultado colateral de alguma necessidade política que nós não temos como compreender, que acontece aí nos esgotos diplomáticos desses países. Agora, Estados Unidos, com certeza, Assange ganha um tempo aqui no Reino Unido, e para ele isso é muito bom, é melhor que ele fique numa prisão aqui no Reino Unido do que numa prisão americana, por razões das condições prisionais e da própria questão de comunicação com ele, com os advogados e com a família. Então, para ele é uma vitória muito grande, e para aqueles que se preocupam com a questão maior da liberdade de expressão e da atividade jornalística, também é importante porque essa apelação agora poderá ser feita em todas as razões legais, aquela que me diz respeito a mim, a vocês, a todo mundo que nos assiste. Então, considero que sim, houve uma grande vitória hoje, temporária, para ser celebrada com cautela e com objetividade, e lembrar sobre o contexto maior que tudo isso tem se inserido, sem perder a sobriedade, sem perder a visão maior de tudo.
Sara, o Assange não esteve presente nessa sessão por razões de saúde. O que se sabe sobre o estado de saúde dele hoje?
O que eu sei é o que é falado, né, pelas pessoas próximas a ele, de que realmente o estado de saúde dele se deteriora a cada vez. Nesses casos de extradição, eu imagino que também emocionalmente seja muito difícil para uma pessoa estar assistindo isso, né? É um julgamento como esse sem poder falar. Você vira de sujeito da ação, de ter sua vida definida, completamente definida, a um mero observador e um objeto, né? Então, eu imagino que até do ponto de vista psicológico deve ser difícil sentar, assistir, não poder dizer nada a seu respeito quando todo mundo fala de você. A questão da saúde física parece que ela deteriora mais rápido do que a mental dele, que mentalmente ele ainda se atém à luta e à possibilidade de evitar essa extradição. É isso que eu sei. Muito pouco é falado, até pelo ciclo mais próximo do Assange. Esse é um tema que eles geralmente não gostam de dar muitos detalhes, e eu imagino que deve ser realmente difícil de expor até uma questão de privacidade às razões físicas de uma pessoa, né? As pessoas gostam de manter certa privacidade, isso eu entendo.
Sara, a gente acompanhou agora algumas das entrevistas feitas ali com o público. Uma das pessoas que falaram com os repórteres da equipe lá do Assange foi um ex-funcionário da Embaixada do Equador, no tempo que a Embaixada do Equador estava abrigando e dando guarida e dando carinho e proteção para o Julian Assange, Fidel. E ele, em alguns momentos, chegou a fazer um depoimento emocionado, mas o que me pareceu a fala principal dele casa muito com o que você disse na sua avaliação inicial. Ele falou, a primeira coisa, ele mandou um recado para o Assange. Assange, fica aí, segura as pontas. Nós estamos com você e nós vamos ganhar essa. E daí falou, nós vamos ganhar porque esse é um julgamento político. O que aconteceu agora é um julgamento político. E isso só se modificou por causa de vocês. Vocês, ele estava se referindo ao público, às grandes manifestações que ocorrem no Reino Unido e no mundo todo. Ou seja, há também uma avaliação do aspecto político fundamental, que é a estrutura, que é a espinha dorsal desse processo que muitos poderiam considerar, na verdade, um crime contra a liberdade de expressão. Se você quiser comentar.
Sim. Sim, o Fidel Narvaez é um amigo próximo meu. Eu acho que ele é uma das pessoas mais com as intenções mais honestas nessa causa. Ele é um homem que tem atitudes heróicas, no sentido de que ele tira a sua última camisa para dar para o outro. Quando ele é procurado por uma advogada, pela esposa do Assange, para um asilo político, ele foi a pessoa que levou isso a cabo, que deu asilo político para o Assange. Isso era um risco político para ele. E não apenas isso, Fidel Narvaez também foi a pessoa que deu salvo-conduto para o Edward Snowden, e que foi recebê-lo na Rússia, e isso lhe custou o seu cargo como cônsul do Equador. Então, Fidel Narváez, realmente, eu acho que ela é uma dessas pessoas extraordinárias que existem no mundo. Tenho um grande respeito por ele, e acho que, como sendo do Equador, um país que pequenininho, mas que o Rafael Correa destemido e que teve uma bravura realmente enorme em ir contra o grande império, ali eu acho que eles têm muito a ensinar ao Reino Unido, à Austrália, aos Estados Unidos, sobre o que realmente é o imperialismo. Eu acho que esse é um papel que as pessoas aqui não conhecem. Existe uma fé, uma crença residual muito forte no sistema, muito forte de que eles são a origem e o centro da democracia, de que os demais países têm uma precariedade no entendimento dos direitos, uma precariedade intelectual, uma precariedade em muitos sentidos. Então, para mim, acho que esses países aqui do norte global, mais que nunca, estão sendo destruídos na sua reputação. A causa palestina, ela tem mostrado o que é a democracia desses países todos da Europa, né? Como eles se engajaram na própria guerra da Ucrânia, como eles se engajaram na OTAN, nessa fábrica de guerra americana, sem nenhum receio, mesmo que se fosse implicar em destruir as próprias economias, jogar uma Inglaterra na recessão, jogar uma na Alemanha na recessão, romper laços diplomáticos com seus vizinhos e criar um mundo de inimizade, sem querer falar do genocídio palestino, que é um projeto colonialista americano e um projeto colonialista europeu igualmente, e que tem tido o apoio das elites desses lugares, apesar de que o público, as pessoas no chão, estão em contra. Então, acho que é muito importante vozes como a do Fidel, que realmente tem um conhecimento e que está gravado na história e na pele, o que uma CIA é capaz de fazer. Nós, no Brasil, entendemos o que uma CIA é capaz de fazer. Nós sabemos o que é uma guerra híbrida. Recentemente, nós tivemos os irmãos Kochs financiando, me parece que foi o MBL e outras ONGs, para poder dar um golpe na Dilma, e foram bem-sucedidos, e do golpe da Dilma, a prisão do Lula, através das relações promíscuas e da intromissão americana, através da Lava Jato, né, através dos nossos colonialistas internos. Então, eu acho que na verdade, eu fico chocada com esse tipo de declaração, que foram várias aí, de que o sistema de justiça britânico está fazendo justiça. Acho que eles, mais que ninguém, deveriam entender que não é esse o caso. E, então, eu estou de acordo com o Fidel aí, pelo que você está falando.
Sara, esse resultado de hoje, parcial, com todas essas ressalvas que você está fazendo, é uma sinalização política. Que impacto isso vai ter na própria campanha da libertação do Assange? Isso vai dar mais fôlego? A campanha muda, agora vai ter oportunidade de expor outros pontos. O que você prevê que possa acontecer nessa campanha que tem tido mais adeptos? Acho que a própria manifestação hoje do presidente Lula, acho que foi também legal. O que você prevê de desdobramento para a campanha a partir dessa decisão de hoje?
Imagino que as pessoas fiquem mais animadas, né? Porque é uma longa história de sucessivas derrotas, sucessivas faltas de perspectiva. Eu imagino que isso deva abrir os ânimos das pessoas dentro da campanha, tanto as pessoas que estão na rua, né, os fiéis seguidores, quanto também as pessoas que estão mais próximas do Assange. Imagino que para o Assange também ele deve se respirar aliviado de saber que ele pode ter uma apelação. Agora, é uma pergunta que depende muito do que as pessoas fazem com o que acontece com elas, né? Se a campanha acha que é importante expandir mais, ou se é importante continuar no caminho sem grandes mudanças. Eu acho que isso aí vai partir do próprio Assange, porque ele que mais ou menos dirige o curso da campanha. Então, vamos aguardar para ver o que o Assange acha que será a estratégia, né? Difícil prever.
Sara, a Eleonora citou aí a manifestação do presidente Lula a respeito do Assange. Eu vou trazer aqui a imagem do post dele em uma das redes sociais. Ele diz, Julian Assange, o jornalista que deveria ter ganhado o prêmio Pulitzer ao revelar segredos dos poderosos, ao invés disso está preso há 5 anos na Inglaterra, condenado ao silêncio de toda a imprensa, que deveria estar defendendo a sua liberdade de expressão como parte da luta pela liberdade de expressão. Espero que a perseguição contra Assange termine e ele volte a ter a liberdade que merece, o mais rápido possível. Nesse pequeno texto aí, nesse pequeno texto aí, a gente tem a importância aí da manifestação de solidariedade do presidente Lula, mas também está incluído aí uma denúncia ou um chamamento, uma denúncia do comportamento da grande mídia em relação a esse julgamento, em que, no fundo, como muitos já disseram, está em jogo a liberdade de expressão, está em jogo o direito dos povos do mundo inteiro de serem informados. Qual é a sua avaliação dessa texto do presidente Lula, especialmente no que se refere aí à questão do comportamento da mídia?
Eu acho que você disse tudo. Primeiro, eu acho que o Lula tem um sentido de oportunidade, no bom sentido. Ele faz essa publicação ontem, um dia antes de que a corte decida. Quantos outros presidentes do mundo publicaram a favor do Assange ontem? Nenhum. Quantos outros deputados, parlamentares publicaram em relação ao Assange? Eu não sei, não saberia dizer, mas cabeças de Estado realmente é apenas o Lula. E o Lula, ele é um líder internacional, tem esse peso também. Ele não é apenas o cabeça de Estado eleito, né, pela 3ª vez no maior país da América Latina, como também ele é um líder mundial, e acho que o Lula se colocou de uma forma, ganhou um novo espaço mundial quando ele, pela primeira vez, tem a audácia de classificar o que acontece na Palestina como genocida. Ali o Lula, nós saímos de não ser nenhum ator nessa questão da Palestina para ser um compasso moral. Ali, acho que ele se inseriu, ele trouxe Gaza para casa, mas não apenas isso, ele tomou um papel que antes não existia para o Brasil dentro desse aspecto internacional. Então, uma declaração do presidente Lula um dia antes desse julgamento, ela é de extrema importância. Ela importa. Ela, dentro de um lawfare, ela é de extrema importância, e porque o Lula é o único líder mundial que resistiu e superou uma guerra híbrida em tão pouco tempo. Então, acho que o Lula é uma das pessoas com maior autoridade moral para falar da causa Assange. E isso tem um recado também para casa. A questão da regulação das mídias, que hoje está sendo, que tem interferências americanas, para que a gente não possa passar uma lei regulando a mídia. Né? Para que a gente não possa, para que isso aqui vire uma terra de ninguém, um faroeste, que quem define o que é liberdade de expressão seja um Zuckerberg, dono do Meta, ou que seja um Elon Musk, um bilionário, né? Nós estamos falando, nós temos lei, o Brasil tem uma jurisdição, tem uma legislação, e não são os bilionários do mundo que vão decidir quem pode falar, como pode falar e como falar. E vão alterar os algoritmos para que as pessoas tenham percepções diferentes da realidade. Então, eu acho que o Lula, nessa simplicidade dele, é um recado que tem uma grande profundidade. Achei absolutamente importante. Vale lembrar também que quando a gente fez o tour pela América Latina, a partir do momento que o presidente Lula recebeu os membros do Wikileaks, me recebeu junto com eles, nós tivemos outros presidentes querendo nos receber. Na Argentina, né, Cristina Kirchner, naquela época, junto com Alberto Fernandes, quiseram nos receber logo depois. O Obrador, que tinha negado receber, logo depois aceitou. O Luiz Arce, também, logo depois aceitando isso, da Bolívia. Só o Gustavo Petro, já que de antemão, antes mesmo do Lula, se prontificou. Então, acho que é muito, muito importante essa declaração do Lula e muito relevante para nós também. Ter um presidente que se coloca nesse lugar, na preocupação contra um lawfare internacional e a favor da liberdade de expressão. Então, o Lula, como sempre, audaz, perspicaz, pontual e oportuno.
Sara, você falou que é difícil ainda a gente saber exatamente as motivações políticas dessa decisão, mas há um peso aí provável da eleição norte-americana, que interfere também na questão também na questão de Gaza, que é crucial hoje, como você já destacou. O que você acha que nós estamos aqui há 6 meses da eleição? Você acha que esse processo do Assange ele pode ter um desdobramento nesse período? Os Estados Unidos, o Biden teve rumores, né, que iria derrubar algumas acusações, que poderia recuar. O peso da eleição dos Estados Unidos, ainda que a gente não possa definir exatamente, nessas questões cruciais que estão acontecendo hoje. Nós falamos do Lula, falar um pouco do Biden.
Eu não saberia te dizer com certeza. Eu acho que quando a corte marcar a decisão da apelação, nós vamos ter mais parâmetros indicativos da razão política. Vamos supor que essa nova decisão, né, da apelação seja para depois das eleições americanas, eu te responderia de que as eleições americanas foram um fator de deter e de aceitar essa apelação. Se acontecer antes, aí eu já acho que deve ter sido uma outra motivação, talvez um acordo da Austrália com os Estados Unidos, procurando uma saída honrosa. Não sei te dizer qual das duas alternativas no momento, eu não tenho elementos para fazer essa análise, mas eu acho que nós podemos trabalhar pelo menos com essas duas hipóteses, né? Uma saída nobre para um caso que politicamente de trás dos bastidores tenha ficado difícil, a fatura, ou, né, e que o Joe Biden queira aí considerar. Agora, o Joe Biden pode, a qualquer momento, terminar com esse processo, entendeu? Ele não precisa da corte britânica, ele pode simplesmente falar, hoje eu não quero mais o Assange aqui, e é por isso que eu tenho um certo ceticismo, porque se a intenção dos Estados Unidos fosse não perseguir o Assange, isso pode ser feito num canetaço hoje, pelo Joe Biden. Por que não foi feito? Por que esse processo continua? Então, eu consigo entender que talvez a pressão política não é suficiente para terminar, ou porque não querem lidar com mais esse problema durante o curso das eleições. Não acredito que a causa Assange seja uma causa que mobilize grandes populações nos Estados Unidos. A maioria dos Estados Unidos não sabe o que é o Assange, não existe uma base ali sedimentada, são mais núcleos, mas é sempre um risco, porque eles podem começar a trazer de volta as revelações que o Assange fez. E num contexto de Palestina, essas revelações são muito horrorosas. Elas são uma repetição da máquina dos democratas. E da máquina também, até, não apenas dos democratas, né? De todo o Estado americano. Então, fica difícil, realmente, Leonor, eu te falar o que é a motivação por detrás, mas acho que nós temos essas duas possíveis referências, no mínimo. Vamos ver o que vai acontecer, mas eu tenho um ceticismo, e a causa desse ceticismo é o fato de que, se essa extradição tivesse que ser barrada por uma pressão política, o Biden já poderia ter dado um canetaço. Agora, se o Biden não quer se dispor a fazer isso, e eles acham que tem que evitar, então imagino que pode ser também uma saída honrosa para a corte mais adiante, de falar realmente, nós não vamos extraditar aos Estados Unidos, mas tudo isso terá que ser feito com acordo americano. Não acredito que da independência da corte britânica aqui nesse caso, não. Acho que tudo deve estar sendo feito de comum acordo com as conveniências britânicas. Isso eu posso realmente te dizer que eu tenho uma convicção. Não tenho provas, mas tenho convicção.
Muitas evidências, né? Muitas evidências, não só nesse processo, mas ao longo da história, né?
Por isso, Leonor, Rodolfo, o que eu acho muito estranho, essas declarações de achar que o sistema de justiça britânico está funcionando. Existe um acordo por trás, são acordos políticos do que vai ser o resultado. É muito inocente. Pessoas que defendem o anti-imperialismo falarem isso, é porque não fizeram para casa corretamente, são com visões de mundo ainda muito confiantes na democracia punjante do Reino Unido, da democracia punjante dos Estados Unidos. é porque ainda estão num relatório negando as mortes de jornalista palestino. Entende como é que funciona a cabeça de muita gente dentro de uma boa causa, onde a visão vai só até no primeiro metro?
Isso mesmo.
Boa, é isso aí. Sara, eu queria aproveitar, caminhando para um fechamento aqui, então, voltar ao balanço do que aconteceu hoje em Londres. Então, lembrando para quem está entrando agora aqui na transmissão, nós estamos aqui com uma transmissão ao vivo desde o início da manhã. A gente, inicialmente, fizemos a retransmissão do material produzido pela equipe da Stella Assange, que acompanhou, então, o entorno e o julgamento realizado hoje na Real Corte de Justiça britânica sobre o caso Assange, e o resultado que eu vou pedir para a Sara voltar a detalhar agora, mas de um balanço geral, como ela havia dito, essa talvez tenha sido a principal, a mais importante até agora, vitória legal de Assange, não só pelo fato de que ele ganha mais tempo sem ser extraditado, mas porque o tipo de ação de defesa que ele pode fazer a partir de agora é mais amplo e vai poder demonstrar a sua verdade aos tribunais. É isso, Sara. Então, o seu balanço desse dia.
É isso, o balanço é esse, que é a decisão mais favorável, porque o Assange vai poder apelar em todas as razões legais que tem a ver, né, que incluem as questões de liberdade de imprensa, liberdade de expressão, que nunca foi arguído até agora na Corte Britânica. Ele ganha tempo aqui no Reino Unido, para ele é melhor 5 anos numa prisão britânica do que 1 mês nos Estados Unidos. Inclusive, é mais difícil a defesa lá, pelo isolamento que ele vai estar vivendo também. E eu acho que tem esse fato também da Corte Britânica falar que não acredita na garantia que os Estados Unidos ofereceu. Isso foi para mim a maior surpresa.
É muito bem observado, isso mostra uma vontade de sinalizar um descolamento, né, em relação aos Estados Unidos, que é ou uma coisa combinada, enfim, a gente vai ter que aguardar aí para ver
Vamos ter que aguardar.
os bastidores, mas realmente é curioso isso.
Legal. Então, a gente agradece aqui a participação da Sara Vivacqua nessa nossa transmissão aí de julgamento, mais uma etapa do processo de Assange no Reino Unido, e agradecemos a participação de todos vocês que estão aí acompanhando esse nosso trabalho. Lembramos a todos que essa transmissão fica disponível em todos os canais TUTAMÉIA, é só buscar por TUTAMÉIA TV, e você nos encontra nas várias plataformas de podcast, no Twitter, no YouTube, no Facebook. E aqui no YouTube, não deixe de se inscrever no nosso canal, clicar na sinetinha para receber avisos de novos vídeos. E agora, então, antes do tchauzinho, a gente devolve a palavra à Sara, para que dessa vez, sem perguntas, então, você mande a sua mensagem, faça a sua fala para o povo que está aqui conosco, Sara, e que fica com a gente pela internet afora. Muito obrigado, a palavra é sua.
Queria agradecer vocês pela oportunidade de estar aqui, por estar sempre seguindo esse caso tão de perto, de maneira tão descomprometida e honesta. E queria chamar todos, eu estou todos os dias na live da tarde, às 4 horas da tarde, toda segunda-feira, às 4 horas da tarde, no DCM, e toda sexta ao meio-dia, que nos vem assistir, acompanhar, onde ali a gente faz as análises políticas nacionais e internacionais. E também queria prestar essa homenagem à coragem do jornalismo civil palestino. Pessoas que, com uma câmera na mão, desbancaram, humilharam, refutaram de maneira definitiva as mentiras sionistas de mais de 76 anos, custando até mesmo a sua própria vida. Então, acho que mais que nunca é importante definir que é importante, no Brasil existiu uma discussão há um tempo se jornalista era apenas aquele com diploma ou não. Aí eu jogo para vocês a pergunta de volta. Atividade jornalista, será que não é ela que tem que ser protegida? Será que essas pessoas com a câmera na mão, que nunca frequentaram uma universidade, não estão fazendo uma atividade jornalística? Será que elas não merecem a proteção da liberdade de imprensa? Será que elas não merecem a proteção dos sindicatos jornalistas? Então, eu acho que é uma discussão inócua essa no Brasil, de dizer que quem é jornalista precisa de um diploma. Não, é a atividade jornalística que tem que ser protegida, seja quem faça ela. E quem está dando o exemplo a maior atividade jornalística hoje nos nossos tempos, são a coragem dos cidadãos palestinos. Então, muito importante sempre estar lutando pelo nosso jeito de saber e o direito da imprensa de relatar.
Muito bem lembrado, Sara. Muito obrigado. Lembrando que exatamente em defesa da liberdade, em defesa da informação, eles têm entregue suas próprias vidas. Né? São mais de 150 jornalistas assassinados pelas forças de Israel em Gaza. Sara,
a Denise está falando aqui, Denise Teixeira, de que porque eu quero calar todas, que eu luto pela Assange, que eu estou no DCM. Gostaria de lembrar que eu fui a primeira jornalista desde o início, né? Eu fiz campanha junto com a Assange, eu organizei o tour do Wikileaks pela América Latina, fui uma das jornalistas que mais trouxe o caso Assange desde o seu início aqui para a imprensa brasileira, que promovi o encontro deles com o presidente Lula, com outros presidentes, resolução na Câmara, resolução. Então, se eu tenho uma história, uma biografia com essa causa do Assange, então acho que eu estou autorizada para falar aqui. Não tanto pelo que eu falei, mas porque eu fiz dessa causa. Obrigada.
Totalmente autorizada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada, Sara.
Muito obrigado.
Parabéns pelo seu trabalho aí.
Isso. Tchau, pessoal. Tchau, Sara.
Tchau, tchau.